Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if neglected Naruto Jounin at 12 part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Knock knock. Enter. You asked to see me, Hokage-sama? Yes, Naruto, come sit down. Naruto complied, and when he sat down, he leaned forward to hear what Sarutobi wanted him for. The third smiled before he spoke. Naruto, I want you to take on a genin team. A genin team? But why have you suddenly decided that I should be a sensei? Now, you're more than qualified to be a sensei. Besides, there is another reason why I want you to do this. Uchiha Sasuke has now become a genin, and he is to be placed on your team. But wouldn't someone like Kakashi be more appropriate for an Uchiha? Maybe, but Sasuke is obsessed with getting revenge by killing his brother. He would do anything to get the power to do so. He needs someone who has had it like he has. Someone who has had the pains which he has had, who will be able to remind him that there is more to life, to open his eyes. That is why I want you. I don't know. Luckily, I do. You'll be meeting your team tomorrow at 10 at the academy. The other two students will be Haruno Sakura. At the mention of a Haruno, Naruto rolled his eyes. He knew what Harunos were like, over-obsessive and an inner self. And Inuzuka Kiba, who I think will be able to learn quite a bit from you, due to your style. Naruto sat there for a while, pondering whether or not to accept, but soon decided that this wasn't optional. Very well, but this means that I'll be able to choose their final test, right? Yes, but remember that I want you to be their sensei. Naruto just waved it off. Yes. You may go now. Naruto then stood up and left, on his way back home to prepare for the following day. The next day. Alright everyone, silence please. Iruka then looked around the room, but nobody was paying attention. Shut up. In a split second, everyone was silent. Good, now I am very pleased that everyone passed, though I had no doubts that you wouldn't. You'll all be placed into teams of 3, all of which will have been made fairly. I'll now call them out. He began to read out teams 1 to 6. Team 7 will consist of Inuzuka Kiba, Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke. Team 8 will be made of Hyuga Hinata, Abirame Shino and Fushigi Hinwari. For description, look at the bottom of the page. Team 10 will have Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Chuji. Alright, that's everyone. Also, your senseis will be Team 7's will be. Iruka smiled as he read the name in his head. He knew this person well. Uzumaki Naruto. Team 8's will be Yuhi Kurinai. Team 10's will be Sarutobi Asuma. Okay then, your senseis should all be coming to collect you soon. And with that, the chatter once again began, and Iruka just sat down heavily on his chair and rubbed his temples. On the board behind him, there were 3 words that were vital to any ninja, underneath. One by one, senseis came and teams went until there were only 3 left. Teams 3, 4 and 7. The door opened once again and in came a person in his mid-teens who was lean, had platinum blonde spiky hair, Ino's hair color, with a braid between his right ear and right eye, which had a leather thong woven into it with wooden beads as well. There were 2 silver rings around the top of his right ear, and his hattai was tied around the top of his left arm, whilst there was some bandaging around his top right arm. He had deep ocean blue eyes, 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. His attire consisted of a pair of black shinobi sandals, a pair of deep purple cargo pants, a fishnet t-shirt with the typical green Jounin vest on top, unzipped. Hey Iruka. How are things going? Long time no see, Naruto. Things have been well anyway. I assume you're here to collect your team? Naturally. Alright Team 7, this is your sensei, Uzumaki Naruto. At the mention of this, the 3 members of Team 7 got plate-sized eyes and their jaws fell to the ground. No way. He can't be our sensei. He's not even that much older than we are. Kiba shouted out, getting barks from Akamaru to back him up. If that is how you feel, then I could always leave and you 3 will have to wait until next year to become genin. Now, there is no need for that. Team 7, you are lucky to have Naruto as your sensei, and you should treat him with respect. He is more than qualified to be your sensei anyway. Iruka shouted. It's alright Iruka, I'm more than used to it anyway. Anyone from Team 7 who doesn't want to wait until next year to become a genin, meet me up on the roof in 10 minutes. Naruto then began to walk out until he stopped. See you later Iruka, and with that, he was gone. 10 minutes later on the roof. The 3 genins were all on the rooftop, sitting on the step, waiting for their sensei to arrive. Seconds passed until there was a poof. When the smoke cleared, there stood their sensei, giving off a fox-like grin. Glad to know that you all decided to give it a shot. Anyway, why don't we all tell us a little about ourselves? Like what? Sakura questioned. Oh, you know the usual, your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, interests and dreams, that sort of thing. Why don't you go first so that we can see how it's done? Okay then, I guess that's fair. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. I have too many likes to name. Dislikes: I don't really think I have any hobbies. Well, I like training and the sword, I guess. Interests again. There are too many to name in my dream. Well, that's kinda personal, alright. Now why don't you go bubblegum? My name's Haruno Sakura. I like looks at Sasuke and giggles. My dislikes are Enopig. My hobbies and interests are looks at Sasuke and giggles again. As for my dream, looks at Sasuke for the third time and giggles. Naruto's sweat drops. Over obsessive. Okay then. Very nice. How about you, dog breath? Kiba gives Naruto evils before he begins. My name is Inuzuka Kiba. My likes are hanging with Akamaru. My dislikes are people like you who think they are all that. Naruto just shakes his head from side to side. My hobbies are training with Akamaru and my family, and my interests are my family's techniques. And my dream, I want to become the head of my clan. Good, now it's your turn, chicken wire. Sasuke ignores the comment and begins. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I have few likes and many dislikes. I have my hobbies and interest in my dream. It's more of an ambition. As it will happen, I want to revive my clan and kill a certain person. Geez, Sarutobi wasn't kidding with this kid. Great, now, tomorrow morning, we'll be meeting at Training Ground 7 for your final test to see whether or not you're good enough to be Genin. But we're already Genin. No, the test which you have all done was to see whether or not you would qualify for this test. The test which you will be taking tomorrow will decide whether or not you'll become a Genin. The fail rate of this test is well over 60%, so you'll have to work much harder. But that's not fair. Life isn't fair, bubblegum. Now, before I go, I must warn you not to eat breakfast tomorrow, unless, that is, you enjoy being sick everywhere. And with that, Naruto was gone in a poof. You think he meant that thing about being sick? Sakura asked. I don't know, but I do know that I don't like that guy, Kiba declared. By then, Sasuke had already left and Sakura, after realizing, went in search of him. The next day. Where is our sensei? He said that we were supposed to be here in the morning, but he isn't even here himself, Kiba shouted. He was now fuming. His patience, though he had little, was all gone, and he had mentally decided to kill their sensei as soon as he arrived. It was 10:30 before Naruto arrived. The first one to greet him was Kiba. Where have you been? You told us to meet us here in the morning. I know, but I forgot to tell you the time, and it's still morning for another 1.5 hours. So you don't really have a reason to be angry at me. Anyway, I'm glad that you are all here now so that we can begin. Naruto then took a small bag out of his pocket. In this bag, there are 9 keys, 3 red, 3 yellow, and 3 blue. You will all be given 2 keys each, so that both of your teammates will have the color key which you're missing. I will have the last set of keys. Naruto paused to make sure that they understood so far. You will have until noon to achieve one of each keys, and if you do, then you will pass. However, if you don't, then you will be strapped to a tree whilst the ones that did pass, along with myself, will eat our lunches in front of you. But why did you tell us that we shouldn't eat breakfast then? It's a simple trick for this test. It's make you all work harder so that you'll be able to eat. It'll also cloud your judgment anyway. Remember to come at me with the intention to kill, otherwise you'll have no hope of passing. He then took out the keys and gave Sakura a red and a yellow, Sasuke a blue and a yellow, and Kiba a red and a blue. He then pulled out the last 3 keys to prove that he had them. Alright, begin. Everyone then disappeared into the forest, leaving Naruto alone. He shrugged and then lay down on the ground, falling asleep. Meanwhile, Kiba was hiding behind a bush, watching his sensei sleeping. He won't know what hit him until it's too late. I'll kick his butt so hard that there won't be anything left. You know you should never show your back to your enemy, Naruto said from behind him, making Kiba spin round so fast that you would have missed it if you blinked. What? How? You should never underestimate anyone. But Kiba wasn't listening. He jumped right at Naruto, who disappeared in a poof of smoke. How did he? I used a shadow clone, Naruto answered from up high in a tree before Kiba got a chance to finish his question. You'll pay for that. Kiba jumped at Naruto again, but this time Naruto didn't disappear. He simply caught both of Kiba's hands with one and both of Kiba's feet with Naruto's other hand. You forgot someone, Kiba said, smirking. Akamaru then appeared from Kiba's jacket. However, Naruto had not forgotten about our furry little friend. He smiled. What's so funny? Kiba demanded, whilst Akamaru made his way towards Naruto's face. Naruto closed his eyes and, when they opened again, they revealed, not his usual ocean blue eyes, but blood-red eyes with hair-thin slits. He also bared his teeth, which were now pointed and had a pair of extra long and pointed fangs. Immediately, Akamaru retreated back to where he came from. Naruto closed his eyes and mouth again, returning them to normal. Kiba had also seen it, and he was speechless and shocked, rendering him from moving, which was also helped by the fact that Naruto had him held tight. Naruto just simply smiled and threw Kiba to the other side of the clearing. Now, where was I? Naruto then laid back down on the ground to rest. In the meantime, Sasuke had been out searching the surround forest of Training Ground 7 for either Kiba or Sakura to get the missing key off one of the two. That would be the easiest way to pass, which he must do in order to reach his goal. He had seen where Kiba was, but before he got a chance to attack, Naruto had intervened, so now he was after Sakura, whom he knew he could easily beat. He finally found her running around the forest, like she was looking for something or someone. He followed her discreetly until she stopped, hiding behind a branch in a tree. "Oi, Kiba! Get up here!" she whispered loudly. Kiba, who had been down on the ground, got suspicious as to why she wanted him to get up there. "Why? Do you want to steal my key?" No, I need to tell you something." "Fine." So Kiba jumped up into the tree, landing next to Sakura. "So, what is it that you want to tell me exactly?" "We won't be able to get a key from Naruto-sensei on our own. And don't deny it, I saw you too. Also, we can't take them from each other, that's just wrong." "Then what should we do?" "We need to work as a team and get the keys from Naruto. So we have to find Sasuke as well." "Alright." Sasuke had heard the whole thing, and thought that his teammates were being dim, thinking that that would work. So he decided to jump down to them and prove that he didn't need them. "Sasuke, we're glad that you're here. We have something to tell." "I already heard everything that you said." "So you agree with us?" "No, I'm here to show that I don't need anyone to help me. That people will only just slow me down." Sasuke then got into a fighting stance. Sakura and Kiba, however, didn't believe what they were hearing. Sasuke would fight his own teammates so that he could progress forward. But Sasuke-kun, you can't do that." Sakura tried, but went ignored. Sasuke leaped, heading towards his two teammates. However, he was stopped in midair. Sasuke looked behind him to find that it was their sensei who had stopped him. "Time's up," Naruto said. His tone indicated that he was disappointed, though no one knew exactly why. Minutes later, all four of them were back to where they had been right before the test had begun. The three genins were sitting quietly down on the ground whilst Naruto stood up in front of them, his arms crossed and his eyes shut. He stood there for a while, letting the silence linger around them, thoughts shooting through his head, trying to decide what to do. Finally he spoke. "Does anyone remember what was written on the board in Irika's classroom the day when the teams were made?" No answer. Underneath, the key for a ninja, does anyone know what it means then?" No answer. "It means that you must find the hidden truth, rather than going for the obvious or following directly what you have been told. The key to this test was for you to work as a team, not for you to actually get the full set of keys." Naruto finally opened his eyes and looked at his team. "A friend of mine believes that those who break the rules are trash, but those who don't put their teammates first are lower than trash, and I agree with him." "But Naruto-sensei, why did you then give us all different keys, instead of giving us the same ones?" Sakura asked quietly. "I wanted to see if you would take the easy route and take away a teammate's chance at passing, or if you gave your key to a teammate so that they could pass, sacrificing yourself for a teammate, or whether you would all work together to obtain the keys from me. If you did the last two, then I would have passed you all. But only two of you would work as a team." Naruto's gaze went over to Sasuke. "Sasuke, you thought that your teammates would just slow you down, and therefore you chose the easiest way by going against them, even when they offered to work as a team with you. That is not the way in which a ninja must work. However, since two of you got the idea of this test, I will give you all a second chance to prove yourselves." Naruto's gaze shifted to the left, where it was held. Everyone else followed it to find that Naruto was looking at three wooden posts on the other end of the clearing. All three genins looked back at their sensei questionably. Naruto had a smile on his face, slightly devilish. "Sakura, Kiba, both of you will be tied to those stumps over there while Sasuke and I will be eating our lunches." Both Sakura's and Kiba's jaws hit the ground. But that's not fair," Kiba began. "Life isn't fair, Kiba," Naruto retorted as he walked over to his bag and pulled out 2 lengths of rope, using them to tie the two genins to the stumps. He also used another piece of rope to tie Akamaru so that he wouldn't bite through Kiba's rope. He then brought out 2 lunch packets, throwing one to Sasuke, who caught it. He began to eat swiftly. Naruto then stood up again. "Sasuke, here, have mine. I have to go off somewhere, so there's no point wasting it." He began to walk off but stopped abruptly. "And don't give any to Sakura or Kiba, or you will fail." And he was off. Sasuke then began to eat, listening to the groans coming from his teammates' stomachs, getting louder as time went by. He couldn't take it anymore. He took the food packet which Naruto had given him and held it up to his teammates. What are you doing, Sasuke-kun?" Sakura asked. "You're hungry, aren't you? So I'm giving you something to eat." But Naruto-sensei told you not to give any to us." "I know, but he's not around, so eat." He held out his chopsticks to both of his teammates, who took the food, thankful to Sasuke. There was a poof of smoke and there stood Naruto, with an angry and scary expression on his face. "Sasuke! Sasuke didn't show any obvious signs of fear, but Naruto knew that he was, and mentally smiled. In a blink of an eye, Naruto's facial expression changed, and he now had a wide grin on his face, and he began to clap his hands. "You all pass," he said softly. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, his jaw slightly ajar. "You pass because, even when I explicitly told you not to feed your teammates, you did, meaning that you sacrificed your own chance of passing so that they could eat, which is what I wanted you to do," he said to Sasuke. "All of you have showed signs of teamwork, so you are now all officially Jounin. Congratulations," he said softly. It took a minute for it to sink in, but when it did, Kiba cheered, Akamaru barked, Sakura was smiling like there was no tomorrow, and Sasuke nodded his head slightly, though he was very pleased, but he didn't want to show it. "But remember, you must carry on working as a team, or you will never advance in the ranks of a ninja." Everyone nodded in understanding. But then Kiba remembered something. "Naruto-sensei?" "Yes. What was it that you pulled back there? I mean the red eyes and stuff." "I don't think that you have the right to know that, at least not yet." "Why? Is it too good for us or something?" "I bet it was some sort of genjutsu." "Yeah, that's it, it was some sort of genjutsu." "Kiba, it wasn't a genjutsu. And just so you know this for future references, my genjutsu isn't all that good. However, I make up for it by exceeding in other areas of the field." "So you're telling me that you're not that good at Jounin?" "No, that's not what I'm saying." "Then how good are you?" "I'd rather not say." "Why? Because you know that you suck." "You know, Kiba, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you have to flaunt it in everyone's faces. Also, like a magician, a ninja must never reveal his tricks." "Oh, so now you're a magician. I thought that you were supposed to be our sensei." "Kiba, that's enough." Kiba was about to retort until he found that he couldn't. He was frozen in place by fear as Naruto was sending a vast amount of killing intent at him. Both Sakura and Sasuke could also feel it, but they could also feel that it wasn't being directed at them, but something or someone near. They then saw that Kiba was about to piss himself, but the killer intent stopped before it was too late. "Will you stop now, Kiba? Or will I have to make you wet yourself?" No, I'm good." "I'm glad to hear that. Now everyone, meet me here tomorrow at 11 so that we can begin with our missions. Oh, and before I go, if any one of you wishes to find me, there are 3 places to look: my house, Ichiraku Ramen Stand, or at the Dango Cafe. Any questions?" "How will we know where your house is?" Sakura asked. "You will all have received letters which contain the information which you need, as I have received a letter containing the information which I need about you. Any other questions?" "No? Good, I'm off then." And he disappeared in a poof. At the local bar and restaurant, Kakashi was sitting on a stool by the bar, enjoying a drink after the long day which he had had. He let out a long sigh. "Hey Kakashi." Said person turned round to find that it was Naruto who had greeted him. "Naruto, what are you doing here? You don't drink." "I had a feeling that you would be here today," he said. A light chuckle came from Kakashi. "I heard that the third made you take on a Jounin team." He received a nod as Naruto sat on the stool next to him, turning his head towards Kakashi. "I heard that you were also to take one on, but I guess that it didn't go too well since you got that drink there." Right, as always this team was even worse than the last one. 2 of them began to fight to find out which one of them could go against me first. Honestly, I know what you mean, so I guess that you used the bell test again. "Of course, what about you?" "I used the key test. 2 of them began to work as a team, except for the Uchiha." Kakashi raised his eyebrow. He was going to fight his teammates so that he could advance. "So what happened in the end?" "I gave them a second chance since 2 of them got the right idea." "The lunch trick?" "Yep, and it worked, thank Kami. If it didn't, then I don't know what I would have done." "Why's that?" "The third made sure that I had Sasuke on my team, which was the only reason why I was chosen as a sensei. He wanted me to be his sensei, for more personal reasons." Kakashi nodded in understanding. There was silence for a while until Naruto spoke. "That book of yours is going to be full in no time if you don't pass a Jounin team soon." Kakashi just smiled back. "Oh. Hold him still." "But it just scratched me. Again." "That's because cats don't generally like dogs, or you for that matter." "Well then why don't you take the darn thing?" "Fine, then hand him over," Sakura demanded as Kiba stood up and handed the cat Tora to her. This was the 6th time in 2 weeks in which they had to go and catch the daimyo's wife's cat. Kiba stood up, growling slightly as he had numerous scratch and bite marks all over him. "I don't get it. How can something so insignificant?" "That's a pretty big word, coming from you, isn't it, dog breath?" Kiba, along with Sakura and Sasuke, who had been silently leaning against a tree nearby, all turned around to find that it was their sensei who had just insulted Kiba, who just narrowed his eyes and looked about ready to assault Naruto. "You know that if you attempt to attack me then you will get your butt kicked." "Yeah, right. You just got lucky last time. Oh? And what about the time before that and BF? Alright, I get it. But you still got lucky. Meanwhile, Sakura had been giggling silently to herself. You know Kiba, he has beaten you every single time you tried to attack him. Pretty swiftly, if I might add. Just keep your pretty mouth closed if you know what's best for you. Kiba threatened. Now, there is no point in threatening your teammates, only I can do that. And why is that? Because I can hold my threats, unlike some people. You just wait. I'm sure, but before we get too carried away with this lovely discussion, we need to get back to the Hokage so that we can report back from our mission and give the daimyo's wife her cat back. I'm sure that she'll be thrilled. Yes, Naruto-sensei. Sakura beamed. Whatever, Kiba growled to himself. Minutes later, the four of them and Tora the cat were in the Hokage's office, standing before said person. Good, Sarutobi said before taking a puff of his pipe. Now I have another drink. No, and no. I'm sick of all of these pointless chores that you call missions. Oh? So what would you have me do then, Kiba? Sarutobi replied with a smile plastered on his face. Well, I'd give us an awesome mission as we would easily be able to complete. Now don't go and get too cocky, Kiba. Naruto hissed, his left eye slightly twitching and a vein evident on his forehead. Meanwhile, Sarutobi just chuckled more to himself. I could give them a C rank, just this once. Besides, if anything were to go wrong, then Naruto could easily take care of it very well. Huh! Was the answer he got from the people in front of him, excluding Sasuke, who merely raised an eyebrow. I'll give you a C-ranked mission. To see if you can handle it, all you have to do is escort someone back to the Wave Country and guard him as he finishes building a bridge over there to Zuna. Please come on in. The door opened, and in stepped a large man with gray hair and a flask of sake in his hand, no doubt half empty. Team 7, this is your client, Tazuna. Said person looked around the room, not liking what he was seeing. So I paid good money for 3 little brata and a teenager? I expected someone more skilled. Why you? Kiba began but was quickly stopped by his sensei. We were hired to protect him, not kill him, Kiba. Naruto scolded, placing Kiba gently back on the floor. Tazuna just scoffed. You don't honestly expect me to accept that these are the people who are supposed to protect me, do you? Tazuna-san, please respect the Hokage. Naruto warned. Indeed, he himself was getting a bit pissed off with the guy. It's quite alright, Naruto Tazuna. With all due respect, this Jounin team is fine for the request. Besides, if anything were to go wrong, then Naruto here will be more than qualified for whatever happens. He may be young, but he is skilled. I'll believe it when I see it. Both Tazuna and Kiba said at exactly the same time. Again, another vein was evident on Naruto's forehead. You will all leave in an hour, so off with you now, the third said cheerfully, said people leaving the room, complaining to themselves about their own troubles. The Hokage couldn't help but chuckle to himself. An hour later, at the gate. All 5 of them were now present at the gates where they were to leave from. Alright everyone, it's time to leave, Naruto said, and with that, he took the first step, followed by everyone else swiftly afterwards. For the first hour they all walked in silence, until Kiba couldn't take it anymore. I doubt that you are that skilled, even if the Hokage did say so himself. He directed this, of course, to Naruto, who didn't respond. Oh, so you're not denying what I just said? Well, that just proves my theory. What theory? Naruto asked, in a slightly non-bothered voice, though he was very sick and tired of the boy and his rants about Naruto. Just that you're only a Jounin because the Hokage favors you and stuff, that did it. Naruto couldn't hold it in, however, he took a deep breath before he began to talk. Do you want to know what level I was at your age? This caught the attention of the whole group. Yes, Kiba replied stubbornly. When I was 12 years old, I was an umbu. Everyone in the group stopped dead in their tracks, with eyes wide open and jaws down on the ground. Naruto stopped, turned around and faced everyone. What? It took a couple of minutes before the jaws were picked up. Kiba naturally spoke first. Prove it, he dared, with a smirk evident on his face. Naruto sighed before his hand made its way to the bandaging around the top of his right arm, removing it to show his team what was hidden underneath. His proof. There, on the side of his arm, was the tattoo which every umbu received to show that they were, indeed, an umbu. Sasuke saw it, and was shocked, whilst he thought. He was already an umbu at my age, and I'm still a Jounin, and he can teach me how to beat Itachi. He has strength, I can see it now. Naruto's face showed no emotion, which was very unlike him when he was with his team, as he was always smiling, or twitching when Kiba went too far. His facial expression had an air of authority and strength, one that should not be taken lightly. Will you stop with the ranting now, Kiba? He asked, his voice also lacking emotions. All Kiba could do was stare, until he nodded dumbly. Naruto's face went back to normal as he smiled. Good. Now I think we should carry on walking before it gets too dark. Everyone else followed Naruto's lead. Minutes later, Sakura asked Naruto a question which had been pondering her. Naruto-sensei, can I ask you a question? You mean apart from the one you just asked now? Sure, why not? If you were an Umbu at our age then when did you become a genin? I was 6. Again, Sasuke's eyes widened in shock. He was younger than Itachi was, by a whole year. I must get him to teach me and make me stronger. Is that all that you wanted to ask, Sakura? Also, if you were an Umbu at our age, then why did you quit? She looked up to her sensei and saw that his face was no longer that of his happy self, but more distanced and sad. I left for more personal reasons. Sakura just nodded slowly. Is there anything else? Nah. Naruto just nodded happily to that as they carried on. They set up camp that night, Naruto keeping alert the whole time, with the help of a certain tenant, whilst he and everyone else slept soundly that night. The next day, they headed off again. The sun was shining, not a single cloud in the sky, and it was hot and dry. So when they came across a pair of puddles in the middle of the path they were walking on, Naruto immediately knew that something was wrong, so he was now more alert than ever, though he made sure not to show it to anyone else. As he didn't want them to worry about it, not until they had to at least. So the 5 carried on walking, Kiba at the front, Tazuna in the middle with Sasuke and Sakura on either side with Naruto at the back. This went fine for about half an hour until Sasuke had been minding his own business and brooding as he would when he heard a scream which sounded a bit like a war cry along with something that sounded like 2 rubber balls being hit together, hard. He quickly turned around to see that his sensei was standing over 2 nins, who were lying down on the ground, unconscious. What had happened was that Naruto had sensed them come running at them and, when they were close enough, he had jumped up and grabbed the hood of their cloaks, effectively hitting both of their heads together, leaving them unconscious, as they were now. Tazuna-san said person turned around. Would you mind telling me why you have 2 Chunins attacking us, as I thought that we were only supposed to protect you from bandits? I don't know what mean. Naruto, however, didn't believe him as he raised a questionable eyebrow. Is that so? Well, if you don't know, then I'm afraid that we'll just have to head back to Konoha as this mission is now above that of a C-ranked. And no wait, you don't understand, this was all which we could afford, and only barely. Care to explain? It wasn't so much of a question as there wasn't an option of him explaining. And so, Tazuna explained everything from Gato to the Wave Country's lack of prosperity. After he was done, Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as he was in deep thought. He then spoke. Alright, this mission has increased in rank, by how much though, I'm not sure yet. But by the description you gave me of this Gato guy, I believe that he will send more after you, stronger ones at that. My genin team here may not be skilled enough or have an adequate amount of experience to continue with this. But sensei, I was about to continue before you felt it right to butt in Kiba. Anyway, as I was saying, because of this, I believe that is up to my team whether or not we should continue, but be warned, we will meet dangerous shinobi and, unlike at the academy, mistakes will cost you more than just a waste of time, so, what does everyone think? Naruto then began to look around at the 3 genins. I'm up for a challenge, Kiba shouted out. Sasuke just smirked with a slight nod of the head to say that he was in. However, when Naruto looked over to Sakura, he could see that she wasn't as optimistic as her teammates. I don't know. Sakura, it is your choice whether or not you want to continue. I can't force you and neither can anyone else, so if you want to go back then we can. But if you choose to stay then remember that I will protect every one of you. I'll make sure that you all stay safe, because you are all my teammates, so I must put you all before myself, alright? Sakura nodded, with a small smile evident. Alright, we can continue. Well, Tazuna-san, you are quite lucky that we're all too stubborn to back down, so, I say that we continue and everyone keep your guard up. Thank you everyone, Tazuna said softly. He received one of Naruto's infamous fox-like grins. No problem, anyway, we best get moving. But before Naruto carried on, he did a few hand signs and mumbled summoning jutsu, almost to himself. There was a poof, and in front of him, stood a green fox with a bushy tail. Naruto, was all it said. Ayakatsun, please go back to Konoha and inform the Hokage of everything and ask him to send someone out to collect the demon brothers. Yes. And the green fox was off. Naruto smiled as the 5 of them carried on with their trip to the Waves Country. 2 days later, in Wave Country. They had just reached Wave Country by boat, and had been walking for only a couple of minutes. They hadn't talked since the incidents with the demon brothers since they were all nervous and on high alert. It was early morning and there was a thick mist which only seemed to get thicker as time went by. There was an eerie silence about, which was giving Sakura goosebumps. Duck! Naruto shouted as he grabbed Sakura and Tazuna, throwing them down to the ground with himself as a clone which had quickly made did the same with Sasuke and Kiba. He looked up to find that an 8-foot-long sword wedged into the tree with a person standing up on top of it. Naruto quickly jumped up as he recognized who that person was. Momochi Zabuza, Demon of the Mist, if I'm not mistaken. I'm glad that I'm recognized though, I can't say that I know who you are. That's because I'm missing a few accessories. Naruto replied with an air of confidence. Even if you had them, you still won't be able to beat me, so therefore I have an offer for you. If you give me the old man, then I'll let you, along with the 3 brats, live. I'm sorry, but I can't allow that, as it is our mission to protect him, so protect him we shall. Very nice speech, though it won't help you. It was then that the mist thickened even more, making it almost impossible to see more than a couple of feet in front of you. Kiba, Sakura, Sasuke. Protect Tazuna, I'll take care of this guy. Boo. No buts. This guy is way out of your league. He is classified as an A-rank Chunin, so leave him to me, understood? Yes, Naruto-sensei. The 3 chorused. Good. Everyone tensed up as they heard Zabuza's voice, though they couldn't pinpoint it as it seemed to be coming from all around them. He was describing the points of the body where he could kill them, sending shivers down the spines of everyone, apart from Naruto, as he was too busy trying to figure out where Zabuza was. His senses caught swift, but quiet, movements, so he moved. Clang! What? How did you? Zabuza began. No? Well, I have my tricks. Zabuza was standing right in front of Tazuna, the 3 genin around him, his sword at hands. However, they did not meet the flesh which they had been aimed at, as Naruto had made it there just in time to block the slash with a pair of kunai, inches away from Tazuna's neck. Sasuke had looked behind him immediately after hearing the clash of metal. How was he able to move so fast? I didn't even hear him or sense him. His speed must be so incredible. Naruto brought one of his hands down, kunai still present, and slashed right into Zabuza's abdomen. However, no blood came as this Zabuza melted into water. A water clone, Naruto mumbled to himself. I must admit that you're pretty fast, however, I will still win. Fat chance. Naruto retorted. There was a smile evident on his face which could easily be interpreted as a smirk. Zabuza raised an invisible eyebrow. Why don't I show you one of my accessories? It wasn't a question, more of an intro. Naruto raised his arms to either side, hands scrunched tightly together. That's it. No. Naruto then, arms still up, began to draw in a lot of air, keeping it in once he couldn't take it anymore. He scrunched up his eyes as he prepared for the pain to come. All the while, all of his students were wondering the same thing. What the hell is he doing? Naruto readied himself before he forced the necessary chakra through his arms in order to push the blades out. In a blink of an eye, 3 blades came out in between his knuckles on both hands, said blades being about 1 foot long. Think of Logan/Wolverine from X-Men. Naruto grunted slightly from the pain when the blades ripped through his skin and anything else that were in their paths. No blood managed to leak as the wounds around the blades had already healed. Naruto brought his arms back down again as he bent his knees, right behind and his left in front. He brought his right arm behind, curving his arm upwards whilst I'm just going to call the blades were pointed down on the ground. His left arm was the same except the opposite way round, it being in front of him and the blade pointing upwards. When Naruto opened his eyes, the blue was gone as it had been replaced by the blood-red eyes with slits. His grin was now wide, slightly freaky to anyone passing by. No one passed by, but if they did, then they would have been freaked by the smile. His canines had also grown, doubled in length and sharpness. All the while, Zabuza's eyes had been widening until they could no longer. Why, you're Konoha's Scarlet Claw. Oh, so now you recognize me, though I'm sorry it took you so long. Naruto replied playfully. As Sensei Naruto immediately looked behind him towards his genin team. When he did, they all flinched at the appearance of their sensei. Just protect Tazuna-san and I'll take care of the rest, he said as he looked towards Zabuza, who had now moved himself onto the water's surface. Naruto then, also, walked onto the water, not falling in as he used chakra to stay above. You do know that you are at a disadvantage now that you are on the water, Zabuza warned, though he sounded happy about it. He only got a shrug in reply, which pissed him off slightly. So you've heard of my name, but what about my doings? Yes, I have heard, quite a lot in fact. But rumors tend to over-exaggerate things. Besides, you seem far too young to have been able to have achieved all of which you have been rumored to. A vein popped out again on Naruto's forehead. Why is it that everyone has to make a big deal about my age? Is it really that hard to understand? I guess so, yes. Naruto was sick about everyone dissing him just because he was only 16 years of age. He had plenty of experience, and that's what counted, right? The two stood there for a few seconds, both of them motionless, until Naruto crossed his fingers and called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu as 8 shadow clones surrounded Zabuza, each of them throwing shuriken at him before they 2 make hand seals. All of them calling out Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. All of the shuriken instantly increased in number, as they were airborne. Zabuza, however, was quick, as he made his own hand seals, calling out, Suetun, Suijin Hiki. As a wall of water rose around him, protecting himself from the shuriken. But Naruto expected this as he had been running straight towards Zabuza, right fist behind him ready to punch Zabuza, blades out. The water wall fell, and when Naruto's fist connected, he found out that was just another water clone. Naruto looked around but couldn't find any trace of the Chunin, so that left him with one option as of where he was, underwater. Naruto jumped and flipped in the air, as a large sword just abruptly pierced through the surface of the water, right where Naruto had been standing not long before. Zabuza quickly appeared. The two then ran straight at the other, prepared to face each other face to face. Zabuza made a high swing, aiming for Naruto's head, but said person just ducked, just like Zabuza expected, so he quickly changed the direction which his sworn was going so that it was now going straight down onto Naruto. However, he stopped it, using his blades crossed together to push it off of him. Zabuza grunted as he jumped back so that he was a fair distance away from the young Jounin. He made more hand seals before calling out, Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu as a huge amount of water rose and formed into the shape of a dragon, it quickly approaching Naruto, who was now making his own hand seals. He shouted out, Futon, Raisin Shuriken as he formed a large wind shuriken in his hand, throwing it directly at the dragon, which dispersed on contact along with the shuriken. Zabuza, again, ran straight towards Naruto, sword ready. Naruto also ran straight at him. However, he was also making hand seals until he finished and called out, Futon, Detapa as a massive wind came straight at Zabuza, blowing him back ruthlessly, slamming him straight into a tree, knocking him unconscious on contact. Naruto carried on running as he was prepared to finish the Chunin off but was too slow, as 2 Saban needles had pierced Zabuza's neck. Naruto stopped a few meters in front of him, looking in the direction which the Saban came from. A Hunter-nin immediately appeared. Thank you for your assistance. I've been trying to catch him for some time now. Naruto raised an eyebrow as the two smelled similar, with his enhanced sense of smell of cause. Something was not right here, but he would play along. Yes, it's quite alright. The Hunter-nin then jumped over to Zabuza, throwing him over her shoulder. He could tell that she was a she, despite her attempts at hiding that perspective. The Hunter-nin then disappeared along with Zabuza and the mist then also disappeared. Naruto turned back to his team and client. Zabuza isn't dead. He'll probably be back once he is fully rested and healed. So I suggest that we get to our destination quickly. But sensei, that Hunter-nin killed Zabuza, Sakura said. Sakura, I'm surprised that you didn't know this, but it is near impossible to kill someone with a couple of Saban needles. Besides, if she really were a Hunter-nin, then she would have disposed of Zabuza on the site where he was killed. So I suspect that she is working for him somehow. She? Sakura asked. Yes, the Hunter-nin was a girl. Anyway, we should get moving. All 5 of them carried on walking, reaching the residence of Tazuna where they met his daughter, Tsunami and grandson, Inari. Next morning, Naruto awoke and strolled down the stairs to the kitchen as he followed the scent of the breakfast cooking. Oh, how it smelled good. He sat down on the chair, and noticed that all of his team were already there, eating their own breakfasts while Akamaru was down on the floor, drinking from a bowl of water. Good morning, Naruto-san. Tsunami greeted, turning her head around for a brief second before walking over to him with a plate, food present on top of it. Thank you? Oh please, don't thank me, it's the least I could do for you, with you helping my father and all. Naruto just shrugged and began eating. The reason why he was up later than his team was because he had been up most of the night, debating about what to do with the situation they were in. Both Zabuza and the Hunter-nin were strong, and he couldn't take them both on at the same time, so he would have to prepare his team for the worst. He looked up to find that the 3 genins were finished eating and were all staring at him. He raised a questioning eyebrow. What? He asked plainly. Sakura was the one to speak up. Naruto-sensei, you were just scowling, and Kiba hasn't even said a word to you yet. Hey, Kiba said, rather loudly at that. Oh, sorry about that, I was just thinking and well, yeah, I decided that when you're all ready that we'll go outside so that I can train you all to prepare for future events. Like what, sensei? Because I want you all to be ready for our next encounter with Zabuza and that Hunter-nin. I won't be able to take them both at the same time, so I want you all to be prepared, alright? Yes, sensei. Good. Oh, and by the way, Tsunami, I enjoyed the breakfast. An hour later, Naruto had led the 3 genins into the middle of a large forest, them getting more confused with each step they took. They then abruptly stopped in front of a few very large and wide trees. Alright, you are all going to improve your chakra control by climbing these trees in front of me by. Climbing trees? But how on earth is that going to help us? I mean, I can do that with my eyes closed. Kiba yelled. I was going to explain that before you so nicely interrupted me. So, as I was saying, you will be climbing these trees without the use of your hands. Naruto then put on a smug smile and looked at the 3 genin in front of him, who all looked confused. You will apply to your feet and release a certain amount so that you can stick to the tree. The higher you climb, the better chakra control you have. If you release too much chakra, then you'll push yourself off of the bark and create a dent. If you release too little, then you won't stick and you'll simply fall off. Use a kunai to mark where you reach so you can see if you improve or not. He looked around again and saw that they had more faith in him now, but they were still a bit confused. I'll show you all once HW to do it. Naruto put his hands together and formed the seal of the ram. The soles of his feet began to glow slightly. He then walked over to a tree and placed one foot on, then another so that he was now walking vertically up, defying gravity. It looked like he was just walking on solid ground. He then jumped back down and landed in a crouching position as he had reached the top of the tree. But I would advise you to start with a run-up, to get more momentum, if you get what I mean. With that, he walked over and sat down on a log, so that he could watch his team begin with their task. Minutes later, he found that Sakura had reached the top on her first try. Well, it seems that Sakura has the best chakra control out of all of you. So, Sakura, come down here. Said girl complied and, when down on the ground, walked over to her sensei. What is it, Naruto-sensei? I thought that you deserved something for finishing this assignment so quickly. He paused as he saw that a smile was now on Sakura's face, reaching from ear to ear. I'll teach you a more difficult method in increasing your chakra control. It is very similar to climbing trees. The difference is that you will be walking on water where you'll have to release different amount of chakra so that you don't fall in. Sasuke, Kiba, carry on with the training, and if you should finish, then go to the bridge and help out there. I'm just going to take Sakura away for a while. And with that, the Jounin and the pink-haired kunoichi left and made their way to a small lake they had passed by on the way to the center of the forest. They stopped by that lake and Naruto began to explain the concepts of walking on water. When he was done, he applied chakra to his feet so that he could show the kunoichi. He took one step on the water and continued to walk a couple more steps until he stopped and turned around to face the female genin. Do you understand what I mean? It took a few seconds for her to reply as she had been staring at Naruto's feet. Why, yes, I do. Good, then you'll practice this until you can do it or until you are fetched, alright? He received a nod as Sakura had already begun to apply chakra to her feet. Naruto just walked away to the bridge to do what they came here to do. A week had passed. Both Kiba and Sasuke had completed their tree climbing a few days ago as Sakura was able to stay on the water for a few minutes and managing to walk on it as well. Their sensei had also been building up their stamina by taking them out on long runs every day, followed by a usual routine of push-up, press-ups, sit-ups and such. The 3 had often complained about this training that they had been receiving, as he hadn't really taught them anything yet, apart from the chakra control exercise, but Naruto had simply replied by saying that you must learn to crawl before you can walk. They had asked him what he meant, and he decided to just tell them what he had been trying to say. They needed to raise their physical level, or else any other training would be pointless. Naruto had decided to go outside to sleep this night, after everyone else had gone to bed. You see, he loved being outside, under the night sky, with the stars shining bright up there. It made him feel calm and, in a way, at peace with everything around him. And tonight, there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. A smile graced his lips. He soon fell asleep. The only sound was an owl, echoing its call. Next day, Naruto lay in the same position which he had been in the night prior. He awoke when he heard some shuffling. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted with a smile, coming from a pale-faced girl who had long silky brown hair framing her porcelain face. You could catch a cold if you stay out here too long, you know, she said kindly. Naruto smiled lazily. I don't get ill, he replied matter-of-factly, but with kindness evident. He merely received a raised eyebrow. As Naruto sat up, he inhaled a large amount of air through his nose, when he caught a scent, a familiar one which he could remember clearly. And it was coming off of the girl. He decided to have some fun. So how is Zabuza? Her eyes widened immediately, but they soon returned to their normal size. So you figured it out, huh? It wasn't as much of a question as it was a statement. It wasn't that hard, since you both have similar sense, and you're a lot like that hunter Nin who came to dispose of him, he explained, whilst he emphasized on a few of the words he said. She just smiled back. So why is it that you two work together? You don't seem like the type. There was a long silence until she answered. Tell me, do you have a precious person? I have plenty, so I guess that Zabuza is yours then, huh? Again she smiled. How did that happen? The smile vanished as a distant look dawned her face. It's simple really. When I was little, I was all alone. I had no purpose, but Zabuza-sama, he gave me a purpose when he found me, so that is why he is my precious person. He wanted me when no one else did. I can understand that, a little too well. Oh? Long story. She then stood up and was about to leave but was stopped when Naruto called out to her. Why is it that you want Tazuna-san dead? I mean, he's annoying and all, but still, why is it that the two of you want this? She stayed where she was, he backed to Naruto. We were hired to do so. I know that, but why did you take the offer? Because Zabuza-sama has a dream and I'll do anything to help him achieve that dream. And we need to do this in order to get a step closer to fulfilling his dream. She then started walking again until she was stopped, again, by the blonde. I didn't get your name. Haku. Naruto. He replied as he let her go. When she was gone, one thought went through his mind. I see, very interesting. Later that day, Naruto had taken his team to the bridge, in order to protect Tazuna along with all of the other people at the bridge. He had left a pair of clones with Tsunami and Inari, which he had done every day since they had arrived. He figured that Gato was the type of guy who would do anything to get what he wanted, and seeing as he wanted Tazuna dead, he might go as far as taking hostages, which Naruto, of course, would have none of. When they got to the bridge, they were all shocked by what they saw. All of the workers were lying down on the cold ground of the bridge, completely motionless. What happened here? Tazuna whispered quietly, pleadingly, hoping that what he saw wasn't real. Suddenly, a mist came, thickening after every second until you could barely see a few meters in front. Zabuza, Naruto said, almost dangerously. Everyone, gather around Tazuna-san and guard him. Do not leave that post unless I say so. Immediately, Tazuna was surrounded by the three genins. Naruto was now in his stance, ready for anything to happen. He tensed his arms and held his breath as he forced chakra into his arms, releasing the 6 blades between his knuckles. He let out a grunt, like he had done last time. He then heard Haku making her way towards the others. Sasuke! Take care of her! He didn't need to elaborate as Sasuke knew what he meant. Sasuke jumped at Haku as the two began a one-on-one fight with only the use of taijutsu. Meanwhile, Naruto was on the lookout for any trace of Zabuza, but his search ended quickly as Zabuza spoke out. I believe we need a rematch, seeing as you caught me off guard the last time, but now, I know all about you. Oh, do you now? He said almost mockingly. If that is true, then you shouldn't be able to stand as of right now. You're too arrogant for your own good, kid. Let's just begin already. I really miss the good old ramen from Konoha, so I would really like to get back there as soon as possible. Yep, he got the desired effect, the annoyance of Zabuza. Alright, punk. And they began. Zabuza ran straight at him, and lunged his sword straight towards the Jounin's abdomen, but Naruto sidestepped, though he still received a small cut on his arm as he hadn't been fast enough. He quickly got back in as he tried at a stab towards Zabuza's side which had been left open for a second. However, the Chunin was quick and dodged, sending another blow with his fist towards Naruto's head, which he dodged and tried to parry it, but failed. The two jumped apart from each other, Zabuza placing his sword into its strap on his back. Hand seals were in progress for the two of them, Zabuza finishing first as he yelled out Suiton Suryudan no Jutsu as a huge water dragon appeared from below the bridge. Naruto had just finished his as he in turn yelled Harem no Jutsu as 24 girls appear out of nowhere in a series of poofs, all of which surrounded Zabuza. The hand seals had only been a distraction, trying to convince Zabuza that he was also going to do something big, therefore surprising him with this latest distraction. Due to this distraction, Zabuza's attack failed and the water simply just fell down heavily on the bridge. A smile adorned Naruto's face as he began another set of hand seals, whilst he had Zabuza occupied, though he was a bit disappointed that no blood was seen coming from his nose. Oh well. Back with Sakura, Kiba and Tazuna, they were all staring wide-eyed at the 16-year-old Jounin after what he had just done. Sakura was mad at the disrespect for women he had just shown there, but then realized that it was used as a distraction, though she wasn't happy about it. Kiba was trying desperately to hold his laughter back, but chuckles and snorts could be heard escaping his mouth. He had not seen that coming, and though he didn't want to admit it, it was a nice jutsu. Tazuna, however, was just letting his slightly perverted side get the best of him, though he was also wondering why there was such a jutsu available to ninjas. Oh, the mysteries. When all of the female clones were gone, Naruto had just finished the last hand seal, yelling out in a whisper Futon, Renkuden as he inhaled as much air as possible, his cheeks blowing up like balloons before finally releasing it in the direction of Zabuza, who, unfortunately, dodged it at the last second. Zabuza drew his sword as he made his way back over to Naruto, pissed now, and took a swipe, only to have it redirected by Naruto's blades. He took another one for the neck but Naruto simply ducked, placing both hands on the ground and kicked his right leg up and towards Zabuza's crotch, Zabuza simply jumping back slightly, sword in hand and aiming for a swipe down only to miss as Naruto jumped right through Zabuza's legs and delivering a punch to the Chunin's back, who gave off a low grunt. The two jumped apart, 20 meters from the other. Lucky hit, but that will not happen again, Zabuza commented. A vein appeared on Naruto's forehead. You know, you're exactly like Kiba, he retorted, a few more emotions evident than he would have liked. You have a bit of a temper, don't you? Oh, I'll show you temper. Naruto then closed his eyes, getting ready for the surge that was about to come. Zabuza felt the surge as well, and a chill ran up his back and down again. Suddenly red chakra started to flow around Naruto, growing and growing every second until it was tens of meters high and half as wide. It looked like a tornado of red energy was on the loose, and he was right in the center of it, still not moving with his eyes still closed. The huge amount of chakra could easily be heard, sounding like a tornado would have. After a few seconds, it died down, reducing it to a thin layer which covered the whole of the Jounin. Naruto then decided to open his eyes, showing off his now red and slitted eyes. He smirked when he saw the reaction he got from Zabuza, revealing his not-fanged teeth. How do you like me now? He said playfully. His voice was also slightly deeper than his normal one. If you looked at his hands, you'd see that his nails had also become clawed. However, they went unnoticed as most of the attention was drawn to his blades. Though were still long, but not smooth or straight anymore, they were now a much darker color, almost black, slightly tinted red, like they had come into contact with blood one too many times. They also seemed to look uneven, with dents and such in, almost suiting Naruto's more animalistic appearance. A couple small, yet extremely sharp, spikes stuck out at random intervals. Naruto noticed Zabuza staring at them, slightly paler. You like? He didn't receive any answer, though he didn't expect any either. Back with Haku and Sasuke, they had been fighting, still at it with their taijutsu. Sasuke was tiring quite quickly, and it seemed that Haku had the upper hand, and you could tell that she wasn't really giving it her all. But their fight had stopped as soon as they had felt the power surge and immediately looked over to where it was coming from. To say that was Sasuke would be an understatement. He had never seen anyone with this power which was so visible to the naked eye. The closest he had seen had been his brother, but that had been 4 years ago, on the night which he would never forget. However, he had no doubt that Itachi was much stronger now, so he couldn't outright compare them completely, so he settled for a draw between them. Haku was now staring wide-eyed at the teen as well. She was afraid for Zabuza, very afraid. She didn't want anything from happening to him, even if it meant giving up her own life. She would do that in a heartbeat, without a single second thought, let alone the first one. Naruto let out a small, yet deeper than usual chuckle. It was a bit nerve-wracking to say the least. Are you going to come to me, or will I have to come to you? He sounded like he was toying with the Chunin, and that freaked nearly everyone out. Zabuza shook a little for less than a second before he gathered himself and stood up straight before his cold gaze settled on the blonde, though his hair had grown slightly, becoming unruly as well as darkening a bit, but he couldn't tell whether his hair had changed or that the thin layer of red chakra surrounding him was causing the illusion. The cut on Naruto's arm had also long ago healed and was now nothing more than its usual flawless tan skin. Zabuza blinked and Naruto was gone, leaving an outline of him with his red chakra. And before he knew it, he had received an elbow in his stomach. He doubled over as he tried to relieve the pain and catch his breath. He looked up to see the 16-year-old, looking at him and smirking. You still want to go through with this? Again, the playful tone was evident. Deep down, Zabuza would have known, but that would show weakness and he would not get paid. But it was clearly obvious that he was outmatched in skill. So he simply chose not to answer. Oh come on, what's wrong? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe Kiba has it, HM? Zabuza did not like the way Naruto was talking down at him. That would simply not do. It was an insult to his pride. While Sasuke had been too occupied with his sensei's battle, he had failed to realize that a foot was heading for his head, though he did realize on contact. But it was too late then when he fell unconscious to the ground. Haku straightened up as she ran over to her precious person's side, taking on a defensive position. I have no intention of killing the two of you, no matter what it says in the bingo books. However, if you do try to carry out your own job, and try to get to Tazuna-san, then I will have no choice. The playfulness was gone, now it was emotionless and dull. Zabuza narrowed his eyes at the teen in front of him, Haku only raising an eyebrow beneath her mask. However, an echo of a chuckle broke the silence between the three as they all turned to see who was the source of the interruption. Well, it seems that the demon of the mist is not match for a bunch of brats. No matter, that'll only make my job a lot easier, seeing as you have been practically taken care of for me, and I didn't even have to pay for that, Gato said amusingly. Zabuza put two and two together and realized what the short businessman was getting at. He realized that they were never going to be paid from the start, and that didn't settle too well with the Chunin. Kid. Naruto looked back to his former opponent, an eyebrow raised as a response. Let me have my fun with him, and we call it truce. Naruto simply nodded as he took a step back and held an arm out towards Gato, motioning for Zabuza to go ahead. Zabuza smirked as he unstrapped his sword from its place on his back and made his way towards his ex-employer and his so-called guards. Oh, how he would enjoy this after the embarrassment he suffered whilst fighting the blonde. Speaking of him, his appearance was now back to normal and he was sitting down on the ground, knees bent with his elbows resting on them whilst his head was resting on his palms. Haku was standing as straight as a stick, completely motionless, watching the back of Zabuza as it got further away from her, until it was near the size of an ant. As Zabuza reached the large crowd of bodyguards, the three nearest to the new Chunin brought forth their weapons, but got no further as they had been cut down with a single swipe. This happened again and again, a path steering in a straight line towards Gato. Said short person had begun to tremble as he noted that no matter how many he had to protect him, Zabuza was still coming closer, and he had an idea of what he wanted, and he did not like it, not one bit. Finally, though it didn't take that long, Zabuza had reached his target, with the rest of his obstacles running away for their lives, seeing as they finally figured out that they couldn't beat Zabuza. Gato was trembling so much that even a blind bat would be able to see it. "Peel, please don't hurt me, I'll pay you a hefty sum," he pleaded, rather feebly if I might add. Zabuza smirked. "It's a bit late for that now, ain't it?" And Gato's head was gone, or rather, it was now rolling gently along the ground, blood spewing endlessly from the neck, or what was a neck until only a few seconds ago. The body soon fell down to the ground heavily. "'Spout time," he added. Naruto had watched it all with mild fascination before he decided to stand up and walk over to the fallen Uchiha. He checked his pulse and found it quite easily. Afterwards, he gently picked him up and carried him bridle-styled over to the other genins. "Sasuke-kun. Guess who?" Kiba would have been smiling at the fact that the Rookie of the Year was out, and the fact that he was the only one out, that is, if he hadn't just witnessed what he just had. No expression could really be seen on his face, he had the expression of an Uchiha, to put it blandly. "Is Sasuke-kun going to be alright? Will he live? What happened to him?" Naruto blocked out the rest of the questions which were coming out like word vomit, in a particularly high squeal, one which only Sakura could manage to let out. "He's fine, Sakura, no need to worry, he just needs his rest." She seemed to calm down. "I'll take care of him." Naruto was about to protest, but Sakura butted in before he managed to. "No, don't worry, it won't be a hassle, besides, what are teammates for?" she said, almost too cheerily, but Naruto knew what she was really thinking. Naruto simply grumbled a quick yes before he started to walk in the direction of Tazuna's house, with Sakura, Kiba, Akamaru and Tazuna following shortly afterwards. Haku and Zabuza stayed where they were, forgotten, until they decided to scram. Back at Tazuna's house, Sasuke had woken up a few hours after he had been placed in the bed he was currently in. He sat up to look around him, only to find the pink-haired Kunoichi was sitting on a chair not that far away from him. "Sasuke-kun," she squealed. Sasuke grunted as his ears hurt from the high pitch emitted from the mouth of Sakura. "A bit loud," he said in his usual monotonous voice. "I'm sorry, Sasuke-kun, I didn't mean to hurt your ears. Here, let me take a look at them." But before she got a chance, and with much appreciation from Sasuke, the door opened to reveal Naruto. He walked in and closed the door, stopping a foot or two away from Sasuke. "Glad that you're up, Sasuke," he said in his usual manner. "HN." There was silence, until the person least expected spoke up. "What happened?" Okay, so only 2 words came from Sasuke, but still, he had started the conversation out of his own free will. "Well, Haku knocked you out." Then Gato and his men turned up. Zabuza decided to let out some anger on all of them, and after that was done, we all left, though I don't know what happened to either Haku or Zabuza. They probably went about their own business of something. Naruto explained. He received a nod from Sasuke. Sasuke was angry, and slightly embarrassed about having been knocked out like that. He shouldn't have been the one unconscious. After all, he was an Uchiha and the Rookie of the Year at the academy. Naruto noticed this, though he could see that Sasuke was well trained at learning how to hide such thoughts or emotions. He had also trained how to read them, as he had been friends with one who was like Sasuke in many ways, so it was easy enough for him. "You did really well, Sasuke, I'm proud of you." He smiled before he carried on. "Haku was at an incredibly high ability, and you managed to hold your own for a while, and the only reason you got knocked out was because I kinda distracted you in a way. Sorry about that." Sakura had stars in her eyes, she loved him even more now. Sasuke felt a bit better, but he also began to feel worse once he saw how Sakura was staring at him. The door then opened again and in stepped the final member of their team, 2 of you count Akamaru. "Naruto! I just remembered something," he shouted as he entered the room. "HM?" was Naruto's response. "You said, and I quote, cat got your tongue? Or maybe Kiba has it. What the hell was that supposed to mean?" Naruto simply smiled as he left the room. A vein appeared on Kiba's forehead. "Naruto! I was talking to you." Answer the question, goddammit. Kiba shouted as he left the room to follow his favorite sensei. So Sasuke-kun? When you're healed and everything, would you like to go on a date with me once we're back in Konoha? She asked as sweetly as she could with a gleam in her eye. No, was his simple answer. Her face faltered for a second before she was back to her happy self, thinking, you're so cool, Sasuke-kun. 1 week later. The 5 members of Team 7 were standing at the beginning of the now complete bridge, which was truly magnificent in its grand yet simplistic form. You see, it was time for them to leave Wave Country and set off home again. Thank you all of you, without you, we would be nowhere, thank you, Tazuna said as kindly as he could, every word coming from the heart. Naruto gave him and everyone else his infamous fox grin. No problem, he replied. There was a cry and Inari came rushing forth from the gathered crowd. He carried on running and jumped at Naruto, latching onto him. Bye Naruto, he cried. See ya kid, Naruto replied whilst he ruffled Inari's hair through his hat. Whilst thinking, nice hat, might get one myself, nah, it wouldn't work with this hair. He then sweat dropped at himself as he realized that he sounded a bit girly. Everyone else around him were staring at him, as it looked like he had just spaced out. Kiba then waved a hand in front of his sensei's face until he got a reaction. Sorry about that, I guess I kinda spaced out or something. Or something, Kiba mimicked. Naruto's eye twitched. Anyway, I guess we should all get going now, Naruto said as he began to walk across the bridge, shortly being followed by the rest of the team. All of them, with the exception of Sasuke, was waving back at everyone, shouting their goodbyes and such until they were completely out of sight. A few days passed until they were back at Konoha. Naruto reported back to the Hokage, telling him about everything that had happened, ranging from the demon brothers, Zabuza and Haku and Gato to Kiba being a pain in the back, causing a chuckle to come from the Hokage. Did you really have to place the Inuzuka on my team? It's bad enough with an arrogant brooder and a starstruck fangirl. Again, the Hokage chuckled before he answered. All of the teams were made so that they all were equal in skill, and because of have Sasuke, who was the rookie of the year, you also get Kiba, who got the lowest result, and then you got Sakura, who's an average student. I guess, but he's still so disrespectful, I mean, common, no one's like that. Sarutobi merely raised an eyebrow. I know, but hey, I was only 6, I didn't know any better. Besides, I wasn't as bad as him, was I? He waited for an answer, but none came. Naruto narrowed his eyes dangerously, leaning slightly forward, to increase the message he was getting across. No, of course not. You were very charming back then. Exactly, hey wait, what do you mean by back then? I hope you're not saying what I think you're saying. Sarutobi merely smiled. No, of course. I would never dream of it. Good, now anyway, I'm going to go and get some Dango. Once the door was shut, Sarutobi thought to himself, Dango, why Dango? It isn't the healthiest yet to forget memories, Naruto, not at all. Okay guys, that's enough for today. We'll continue training in 2 days' time, same place. Naruto announced to his team. He heard a number of groans coming from the 3 as they walked over to him. Even Sasuke was down and tired, not even bothering to hide it. As soon as the 3 were near enough to their sensei, they plopped down to the ground, not caring that much for the pain they received on their behind, as the whole of their bodies hurt like hell, well, nearly. Naruto-sensei, why do we have to train like this? You haven't even taught us anything yet, Sakura said in between breaths. Naruto gave a small mocking smile. You see, that's where you're wrong, and all of this training I'm giving you is necessary if you want to become great ninjas. You'll need all of the strength, stamina and speed that you've got, and to be honest, none of you were at that high of a level in any of those areas, Kiba being the furthest ahead, and not by much. Besides, what's the point at being able to use a number of great jutsus if you aren't able to last that long in a fight? You see, everything I do makes complete sense. He finished with a smirk. There was silence for a few seconds before Naruto spoke again. So I guess I'll see you 3 in 2 days' time. See ya. Why aren't you going to train us tomorrow, Naruto-sensei? Sakura asked. Damn, and I nearly got away. Well, you see, Sakura, I have some things that I need to do tomorrow, he replied as he scratched the back of his head. What kind of things? Kiba asked suspiciously. Typical Naruto thought. It really isn't any of your business, you know. So, just tell us, Kiba demanded. Naruto hesitated. You could say I'm going to meet up with a friend, I guess, he said, a little unsure. Kiba smirked as an idea popped into his head. A girlfriend, I see. Though I do pity her, he said as he had a finger placed on his chin. A vein appeared on Naruto's forehead. I'm not even meeting up with a female. Kiba's smile increased. Oh, so you're gay, he declared. The vein on Naruto's forehead grew in size as another one also appeared. No. And for your information, I am bi, Naruto declared. He regretted saying those words as soon as they left his mouth. Too late, there's nothing I can do about it now. Kiba raised an eyebrow, shocked at first, but then an evil smirk appeared on his face. So, what are you going to do tomorrow if you're not meeting up with any of your friends? Kiba said. No answer. Kiba raised another eyebrow. Naruto didn't really want to tell them what he was doing tomorrow, so he quickly got an idea. Hey, Kiba! Yeah? Are you by any chance related to Hana? Kiba narrowed his eyes as he nodded slowly. I thought as much. You have the same eyes and hair, though she looks after hers better than you do. He finished with a mocking smirk. How? What are you? Kiba really didn't know what to say. How the heck does he know Hana? Oh, he better tell me, or else he is going to pay. How on earth do you know my sister? He shouted, obviously annoyed. Naruto just smirked before he poofed away. Kiba growled and ran off home. Sakura had just been sitting there, wide-eyed after hearing her sensei declare that he was bi. She did not see that coming. Sasuke didn't know whether to smirk or raise an eyebrow. At the Inuzuka compound, Kiba had quickly returned home in order to find his older sister. He searched throughout the house and found that she was not there, so he decided to go search at the kennels. He was certain that she would be there. Upon entering, he immediately found her feeding the dogs, typical of her. He ran straight towards her and stopped when he was beside her. Hey Kiba, what's up? She asked like she would any other day. Don't what's up me. How do you know Naruto? He demanded. Huh? Do you mean Uzumaki Naruto? Yes. Hana let out a chuckle. Of course I know him, we used to date. At the mention of that last word, Kiba's jaw hit the ground. They dated? Hana chuckled again. What's wrong, Kiba? Why you dated him? Yeah, why is that so hard to believe? Because he's an idiot. How could you date a guy like him? There's nothing wrong with him. In fact, he's very sweet and kind and we're still friends. Friends? Yes, how did you come to know Naruto anyway? He's my sensei. Sensei, you say? He's pretty young to be a sensei, but I guess he is strong enough. Don't tell me you believe that he's of a Jounin level. I don't. Oh, thank Kami. He's much stronger. What? And with that, Kiba fainted and hit the floor, Hana's chuckling echoing through the kennels. Next day, Naruto had woken up earlier than usual that day, as he would need to get out before too many people were awake. Besides, he couldn't keep him waiting. He hurriedly ate his breakfast after a quick shower, which consisted of toast with bacon and a fruit salad, along with a glass of milk. He ran out of his house, naturally locking the door behind him. He ran to the main gates, where he saw two Chunins, who were, in fact, a couple of his friends. He also knew that they were always on guard duty this time of the month, so that was why this time of the month was chosen. Hey there, Kotetsu, Izumo. Naruto greeted. How are things going? Kotetsu looked up and smiled. Naruto. Things are fine, if a little on the dull side, but then again, we can't complain, we could have been stuck with worse jobs. Yeah, Izumo agreed. So I guess it's that time of the month again, and Naruto? Naruto gave them a small smile. Yeah, but I gotta do what I gotta do. So I guess I'm off before he gets too agitated. Yeah, you better. We wouldn't want him to get angry, now would we? Kotetsu agreed. See you later, guys, and Naruto was off. He ran as fast as he could, heading in a straight line for a good 2 hours before he came to a stop. He was far enough from Konoha, and anywhere else for that matter. He stopped in a small clearing and sat down in the middle on it. He took in a few deep breaths before he began to do some hand seals, each one faster than the last until he had completed them. In front of him, there was a large puff of smoke, and when it cleared there, in front of him, stood a miniature version of Kyubi, about the size of a large horse, with only one tail swishing around behind him. Naruto looked up and smiled a cheeky smile. You better get going and do what you want before I call you back in, Kyubi-sama. Kyubi just scoffed. Whatever, brat, I'm off. And don't you dare send me back early, or you'll be sorry when you go back to sleep tonight. The old demon threatened as he began to walk off into the forest. Naruto just laughed quietly to himself. He hasn't changed, probably never will. You see, Naruto had made a deal with Kyubi many years ago. Naruto would grant Kyubi freedom for 1 day per month, permitting that he makes sure no humans see him and that he doesn't go on a killing spree. And in return, Naruto has constant access to the fox demon's power, along a contract which allows him to summon Kyubi, though he had only had need to do so once in battle before, and only then had he given him 2 taels worth of his own power. And on these days where he had his freedom, he would only be given 1 tael's worth. Also, along with the deal, Naruto had to show the fox some respect, like calling him Kyubi-sama and such. Naruto didn't want to know what Kyubi got up to on these days, as long as it didn't affect him. Instead, he would just wait in the area where Kyubi was summoned until sunset when the fox would return again. At first, it had only been once every 10 weeks, but it had been changed to once a month, so as to appease the Fox Lord. Naruto would also make this day his official day of rest, where he would just lay about and simply do nothing. Yep, he did enjoy these days. Only a handful of people knew about what happened these days, and they consisted of Sarutobi, Izumo, Kotetsu, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Irika. Sarutobi for both official and personal reasons, Izumo and Kotetsu because they would always be guarding the gate at the time when he was to give Kyubi his freedom, Kakashi because he was a good friend of his, and they knew nearly everything there was to know about the other, Jiraiya because he had always been there for him. He had even helped him train when he was young, well, younger in Irika because, truth be told, Naruto owed a lot to him, more than he did to anyone else, and there was also the fact that the two were close, brotherly close. The day passed a bit too quickly if he had to be honest, but he knew that it had to be over sooner or later, so he might as well get it over and done with. Naruto woke up abruptly after realizing that he had nodded off. He sat up and looked around, eventually setting his gaze on the horizon. He noticed that the sun was nearly gone, and as if right on cue, Kyubi showed up, emerging from the bushes. Naruto looked over and inspected Kyubi. He saw blood stains around his mouth and claws, and a large grin plastered on his face. This was how he always looked like once he was done for the day. Naruto knew that it wasn't human blood and that the fox had just been out hunting and having a little fun, along with catching his own meals. Right on time as usual, Kyubi-sama. Ready to go back now? Like I have a choice. Naruto merely shrugged as he did a couple more hand seals. When he finished the last one, there was a poof and Kyubi was gone, and was now situated in his usual residence. The jutsu used by Naruto was also different than a normal summoning jutsu, as more chakra was needed, along with more hand seals, set in a complicated order. There was also the fact that if and when Kyubi was summoned in battle, he demanded a sacrifice, as he didn't want to be shown up by Manda, the snake boss, though Naruto and Kyubi had agreed that it need not be a human one, but that it may be any animal which a fox would eat, such as a deer, or a couple smaller animals, like rabbits or squirrels. Naruto smiled as he began to run back home again to rest in his bed, as these days also took quite a lot of chakra from him, but it was part of their deal, so there was no backing out. He quickly reached the gates. It was now dark, but he still managed to see his two friends sitting by their post. He heard snoring and realized that one of them was asleep. Naruto walked over to them and stopped by the desk. Hey Izumo, I guess there wasn't enough excitement for Kotetsu to be able to hold out the whole day, huh? You got that right, Naruto, Izumo replied as he began to wake up the sleeping Chunin by shaking his shoulders. What? I'm up! Kotetsu shouted as he jumped up off his seat, landing awkwardly on the earthy ground. Or down, Naruto joked, earning laughter from both of the Chunins. Everything go okay? Kotetsu asked as he sat back up on his chair, after dusting some dirt off of him. Yeah, like you, I fell asleep, which reminds me, I'd better get back home and catch some sleep. He then began to walk off, waving a hand back at the two. Lazy Jounin, Kotetsu grumbled playfully. I heard that. Naruto shouted back at him, even though he was nearly out of sight. Next day, the three genins of Team 7 were at their usual meeting spot, just outside Training Ground 16. They were all looking at their watches, waiting for their sensei to arrive. In a matter of seconds he would be late. 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, I'm glad that you could make it, Naruto said as he poofed there just as the second hand reached 12 on their watches. He had made just in time, though he knew that he always arrived just at the exact time. Kiba he had been boiling up inside was about ready to explode. Naruto. HM? What is it, Kiba? How dare you date my sister? Oh, so she told you, huh? Yes, she did. And I hope that she also told you that we're not a couple anymore. Well, yes, but... Then there is no problem, so let's get back to training, alright. Kiba grumbled back in response as he and his two teammates made their way over to the posts where they would begin with hits, punches and kicks, which they had been doing ever since they returned back from their mission in Wave Country. No, we won't be doing any of our usual routine today, Naruto said as he saw his team turning and heading over there. They all turned around expectantly, each of them raising an eyebrow. Really? All three said in unison. Nope, 'cause today I have a special present for you all. Sakura squealed in delight. Sasuke kept his eyebrow raised and Kiba jumped up whilst punching his hand up through the air. What kind of present? Sakura asked innocently, though she was jumping for joy on the inside. Naruto smiled as he revealed 3 packages wrapped in brown paper and tied with a piece of string. Why don't you look and see? He said as he threw the 3 packages over to the 3 genin. Kiba and Sakura opened them quickly, ripping the paper whilst Sasuke unwrapped his slowly in his usual manner. When they saw what was inside their packages, their smiles faded. What are these, Naruto-sensei? Sakura asked. Yeah. They look like some cheap wristbands and stuff. Kiba backed up. Ah, those, my friends, are training weights. Training weights? What are they for? Well, as the name states, they are weights you use when you train. You see, if you train when wearing them, your body will get used to them and therefore get stronger. So when you take them off, you'll be at a whole new level, you'll be much faster and stronger along with the fact that your stamina will also increase. Sasuke smiled, though it was a very small smile. A whole new level, you say? I could get used to this. He looked up his sensei and muttered a quiet thank you. When Naruto heard this, he looked down questionably for a second before he smiled back. No problem. Now, why don't you all put them on so that we can begin training? A groan came from two of his genins, whilst the last one began to put his on. Naruto looked over and saw that Kiba was having some trouble with his weights, so Naruto walked over to him to help him. Here, Kiba, let me help you with that. Kiba looked up and reluctantly accepted the help. You see here, Kiba, the smaller ones are for your wrists, Naruto explained whilst he strapped them on. The medium ones are for your ankles, while the largest one here is meant to be strapped around your waist. He then finished as he strapped the waist weight on. Okay, you see these slots that are around the weights? He received a nods all round. Good, now, they are there so that you can increase the weight of them by adding extra weights. Right now, they all weigh about 5 kilograms, with your waist weight weighing nearer to 10 kilograms, so you have a total of 30 kilograms on you. Naruto explained. Naruto-sensei, do you also wear weights? Sakura asked. Well, Sakura, in a way, yeah, but they're not the same as yours, though I do wear some weights. What do you mean? I have a special seal on me which is called a gravity seal, which makes my body feel heavier than it would normally be. I can change the gravity level which is on me by applying more chakra to it. How come we don't just get a seal instead of these things? Because they take a lot of chakra in both amounts and control to use, along with the fact that they can easily harm one's body if not used correctly. It also takes a long time to place them on your body, and you'll need a seal's master to place them on you. Who did you get to place yours on you? Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin. This earned him a couple of raised eyebrows. Sasuke was pleased, his sensei was working them hard and he had good connections. This could prove to be very useful in the future. Anyway, let's get back to training. I want you all to run around Konoha for the whole of today, with your weights on, of course. You will get 3 breaks, one at 11, one at 1:30 for half an hour so that you can have lunch, and the last one at 4. You will be dismissed at 7. Everyone groaned. Alright, get going before I make you put on more weights. The 3 were instantly gone. Naruto smiled to himself. He had also wanted them to have weights so that he could use them against them as threats, like he had just done. Yep, life as a sensei could be very rewarding. At lunchtime, after he had had a couple of bowls of ramen from his favorite ramen stand, he had gone over to the Dango cafe to have, surprise surprise, dango. He sat down at a table with a large plate of chichi dango which had Mitarashi syrup on top. He was about to begin when he heard someone talk to him. Can I sit here? Naruto looked up and saw a woman, shinobi by the looks of her attire, who had purple hair and a plate as large and full as the one which Naruto had. She also had chichi dango with Mitarashi syrup on top of hers. There isn't any more room apart from that guy over there, she said as she pointed over to a man sitting in a corner, a small empty plate in front of him whilst his finger was busy in his nose. Naruto cringed at the sight. Yes, of course. She thanked him and sat down on the opposite side of the table. The two then began to eat his and her respectable dango in silence, before the purple-haired kunoichi spoke up. So, what's your story? I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said there. I asked you what your story was. Only someone who has gone through something which they rather wouldn't would eat that much dango. I should know, she said as she pointed back down at her own plate. Long story, but you could say that I'm trying to get off Pocky. That's not the real reason, she deadpanned. No, but the reason why I want to get off of Pocky is. Ah. So what's your story then? I've been eating this stuff ever since I came back from somewhere where I'd rather not go again. Understandable, Naruto said as he swallowed his last piece. He stood up. Your name's Anko, right? Yeah, how did you know that? Should I know who you are? No, not really, I'll see you around, Anko. He waved her goodbye as he left the cafe. Anko was curious as to who he was. He did seem vaguely familiar to her, so she decided that once she was finished here, she would go and ask her good old friend, Kurenai. Half an hour passed before the Genjutsu mistress was found. Hey, Kurenai! Anko shouted her greeting when she stood right behind her. Anko! You don't have to be so loud, you know. I can hear you perfectly well, though I don't know if I'll be able to for long if you keep on shouting like that. Anko just grinned. Yeah, well, I just came to ask you a question, that's all. Oh? And what would that be? Do you know who that kid is, the one with the blonde hair and blue eyes, of Jounin rank, I believe? He has 3 weird markings on each cheek. Oh, do you mean Uzumaki Naruto? Anko's eyes widened as she got a flashback. Flashback. Anko was lying in a bed in the hospital. She had been there for a while after she had been left in Konoha by her former sensei, Orochimaru. She hadn't woken since she came, but she was faring well, all things considered. She groaned slightly as she opened her eyes only to be met with blinding white. She squeezed them shut, opting to open them slowly instead. When they were completely open, she looked around hesitantly before she realized where she was. She dubbed it safe and closed her eyes again, only to hear someone speaking. Oh, so you're awake? She turned to her right to where she heard the voice coming from. When she found the source, she saw a boy, younger than herself, lying down in the bed next to her own. The boy had beautiful blonde hair and the most intriguing of blue eyes. The boy was smiling for reasons unknown to her. He had bandages covering his cheeks along with his neck and chest, the rest being hidden beneath his blanket. Who are you? She asked quietly, her voice showing her nervousness. Oh, me? My name's Uzumaki Naruto, so what's yours? Anko. Well, it's nice to meet you, Anko. The two lay there in silence, Anko looking around and observing the room which she was in until her gaze settled on a card which was standing on the table next to Naruto's bed. She could only just see the front, where she read the words, "Get well soon." Who's your card from? She asked wearily, though she now knew that he wouldn't harm her, even though he was years her junior, her being 13, and his age still undetermined by herself. She saw that his smile brightened. It's from Tachi, he declared, still grinning. Who's Tachi? He's my friend, my best friend. You see, we just took the Chunin exams together, along with our teammate. Though I kinda overdid it in the last round, that's why I'm here. Oh, she then realized what he just said. The Chunin exams? Yep. Though he looked a bit too young to be in the Chunin exams, but she also knew that looks could be deceiving, she had learnt that the hard way. How old are you? 8, but I'll be 9 in 2 months. 8? Uh-huh. And flashback. Are you okay, Anko? You kinda spaced out there, you know. What? Oh yeah, I'm fine, just got caught up in my thoughts, so how do you know him anyway? Well, I only met him a couple months ago when I was assigned as a sensei to a Jounin team. He was also there, he was assigned a team, and he passed them. He's already a sensei? He's only, she thought back to when she was in the hospital all those years ago, and did the maths. Like 16. Yeah, I know, but he's really talented. Thanks, Kurenai, I think I got it now, so I'll be off, see ya. Wait. Yes? Why did you want to know about him? 'Cause I just ran into him at the Dango Cafe, and he knew my name, so I felt it only right if I knew his. And she was gone. I swear that woman gets crazier the longer I know her. Kurenai mused to herself. The next day, Anko made her way to the Dango Cafe as she did every day when she wasn't away on missions. Once she had her plate full, she looked round the room and spotted the person whom she had been looking for. She walked over to him and cleared her throat to get his attention. When he looked up, she asked, "Can I sit here?" "Sure thing." And so she sat down. They began to eat their dango until Anko spoke. "So did you become a Chunin back then?" Naruto looked up and smiled. "So you remember, eh?" "Yes, I do, Uzumaki Naruto." He nodded his head in response. "So did you?" "Yep." "Then when did you become a Jounin, if you don't mind me asking?" 2 years afterwards, when I was 10. "You don't waste any time, do you?" she said playfully. "I guess I don't, but I learned that you should make the most of what you have, so I guess that I tried to get as far as I could get before anything was to happen." "Makes sense, so why aren't you an ANB yet?" "I was once, when I was 12, but then I quit." His face saddened when he said that. "Why? What happened?" "I'd rather not talk about it. But it's related to Dango." Anko understood. When the Dango got involved, it was serious well for her anyways. She then tried to change the subject. She then remembered Naruto's friend. "So how's Tachi doing?" However, what she didn't expect was for Naruto's mood to fall even further down. She could see the hurt, the pain and the sadness in his eyes. She guessed that his friend had something to do with Naruto eating dango and quitting the ANBU. She then tried to change the subject for the second time. "What now? So, I heard that you have a Jounin team." She mentally crossed her fingers, hoping that this was a safe topic. She looked up to see that he had a smile, a real smile on his face, and that look that he had in his eyes was also gone. "Thank Kami-sama." "Yeah, you heard right. Bunch of mismatches if you asked me. I got a Haruno fangirl, a revenge obsessed Uchiha, and Inuzuka with a huge ego." Anko had a twitch in one of her eyes. Yep, that was definitely a bunch of odd ones. She pitied him slightly, and she was also envious, as they would surely be amusing to have together. Naruto noticed the look on Anko's face. Very strange batch. He muttered right before he put his last piece of dango in his mouth. Anko shook her head and also ate her last piece. They stood up at the same time, both of them waving to the other as they left to do whatever they were going to do. 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks, Naruto had increased everyone's weights. Sasuke now had a total of 60 kilograms on, all of his weights doubling in weight, while Kiba had a total of 90 on, his tripling. Sakura had 42 on, 7 on her wrists and ankles and 14 on her waist. They were still carrying on with their laps of Konoha, 2 each morning with push-ups and the sword afterwards. All 3 of them had completed the water walking exercise as well. All in all, they had progressed nicely where their physique was involved. However, they were also getting impatient, as they hadn't been taught any ninjutsu or genjutsu. Also, Kiba had been trying and failing to get Naruto to tell him what the red chakra that Naruto used was and how he got it. Naruto. Kiba, you do know that you should call me Naruto-sensei, right? Since I'm your superior and teacher, after all. Naruto informed the Inuzuka. Whatever. I have a question. No, Kiba, I'm not gonna tell you what my red chakra is. No, that's not what I want to know. I have a new question for you. Oh, then shoot. When did you get your claw things? I got them when I was 12, heading on 13. So is it an ANBU thing? No, not really. So that means that I can also get some of those, right? I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you knew the reason as to why I got them, Naruto replied, ending it with an almost whisper, like he was talking to himself. Kiba raised an eyebrow at the obvious emotion on display. So why'd you get 'em? Naruto smiled softly. It doesn't matter anyway, they're not for you. What do you mean they aren't for me? They were practically made for me. Naruto let out a long sigh. He had to tell him, Kiba, when you have these, they are extremely painful to use, as they come out straight through your skin between your knuckles, and they also rip right through anything else in their path. You won't be able to heal them and therefore, it'll most likely render your arms useless. Besides, you need a lot of chakra control to be able to draw them correctly. Kiba put a finger in his chin in a thinking manner. Then how come you can use them when you said that they would render one's arms useless? Well, you could say that I have super healing abilities. Like a bloodline? I guess you could say that. Alright, I give. He then ran over to carry on with his training exercises. I heard some kid call Kiba troublesome, and I couldn't agree more, Naruto thought to himself. He leaned against a tree and watched his team train in front of him. They had come a long way, but they had even further to go. Kiba was physically the fittest of the group, he couldn't deny that, though he did know that that also came with the training and clan jutsus that the Inuzukas had. Sasuke was above average for their age, which was to be expected seeing as he was also dubbed the Rookie of the Year. But Sakura, she was lagging behind a bit. He could see her struggling, but he could also see that she refused to give up, and he respected that, though that it also had something to do with her trying to impress Sasuke. But motivation was motivation, I had been thinking of what he should do with her. He knew that she would need a bit more attention than the others for now, just until she could catch up a bit. Hey, Sakura! Come over here for a second! He shouted, and said girl came running over to him, panting slightly, though she tried to hide it. She slumped down on the ground. Naruto smiled at her as he bent down to her level. He took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly. Sakura, he didn't know where to start. You know that you're behind the others, don't you? He said as kindly as he could, his voice soft. She nodded and looked away, saddened that her sensei had also noticed. But I can see that you're trying and that you're not giving up, and that is very important, and not many are like that. She looked back up and smiled a small smile. Naruto smiled back. You also have a good head on your shoulders, but you need to catch up to the others. She nodded on understanding. Therefore, I have an idea. She looked at him, hopeful. I want you to take ballet lessons, he declared. Sakura immediately face faulted into the ground and stayed there for a good few seconds. She then jumped up and began to yell. Ballet lesson? How on earth is that going to help Naruto-sensei? Naruto just smiled. He had a feeling that she would react like this. Sakura, he began, with his serious tone in play. I know a lot of successful kunoichi who took ballet lessons to improve their body. Now I know what you're thinking and I can see where you're coming from, but trust me on this. You'll benefit greatly from these lessons, especially if you wear your weights. You see, ballet will help you with your control over your body and give you an amazing sense of balance, and to top that off, you will be able to move through moves smoothly, which will help you to show off your new skills. Sakura smiled, then her smile grew until she had stars in her eyes. Hook, liner, and sinker. So what do you say, Sakura? He asked, hopeful, though he had a pretty good feeling of what her answer would be. Yes, she shouted out loud. Glad to hear it. Listen, I know someone who works at a dance center, and she'll be able to get you in. Your classes will be in the evening, so they won't interfere with our training. if only a little, but you'll benefit more than you'll lose from it. Thank you, sensei. She said, and he could hear that she meant it, especially since she just called him sensei and not Naruto sensei. No need to thank me, besides, I'm only trying to make sure that I have the best Jounin team out there. So I'm only doing it for myself. He teased, and he knew that Sakura caught on as she laughed a little herself. Anyway, why don't you go and catch up to the others? I've held you up enough. Oh, and your first ballet lesson will begin in 3 days' time. I'll tell you the address tomorrow. Okay, Naruto-sensei, she said as she ran off towards the others. Hours passed, and he looked up at the sun in the sky. Well, it was actually quite far down, so he decided that it was time to end that day's training. Alright guys, that's enough for today, why don't you all head home? Kiba nodded as he and Akamaru ran back in the direction of the Inuzuka compound. Sakura also ran back home, after being rejected by Sasuke for a date. Sasuke, however, stayed in place, like he was expecting something. Naruto, though, that was odd, so he walked over to him. Is something wrong? He asked simply. Sasuke looked up at him, determination written all over his face. Train me. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Train you? What do you think I've been doing? No, that's not what I mean. I want you to train me so that I can get stronger in order for me to succeed in reaching my ambition. Naruto thought back to the day and remembered what Sasuke had said that day. Naruto's smile saddened, though it was still there. Sasuke, he paused for a few seconds. You need to learn that there is more to life than revenge. No, sensei, there isn't. My sole purpose is to avenge my clan. You're not an avenger, Sasuke. You're a good, maybe even great shinobi whose heart is set on something which will ruin your life. I'm an avenger, and that is all I am. Sasuke, I understand the pain that you're. Sasuke lost it. No, sensei, you don't. You don't know what it's like. Knowing that you're the only one left after your brother, your own brother killed everyone you held dear to you. You don't know what the pain is like, so don't even pretend that you do. Don't you dare say that I don't know what it's like. No one knows what it's like. Oh Sasuke, you are clearly mistaken. I know exactly what it's like. How can you when you're always so happy? You don't know what it's like to lose everything and everyone. You have no idea. Oh yes I do. My life hasn't been an easy walk in the park. My life's been a living hell. It won't compare to mine. Is that right? I never even knew my family. My dad died before I was born, and my mum left me here in Konoha the day that I was born, never to come back again, and on that very same day, I was given a burden that I didn't ask for, one that would make people hate me for something that I had nothing to do with. But the sad thing is that I'm proud of my mum, because she has helped so many other people, even though I have not once met her in person. And to top that off, the one person that I let close, the one person I thought that I could trust my life with, he betrayed me the day he killed his clan. That's right, Sasuke, I knew your brother, and I knew him so well. You could even say I loved him. I really did. I loved him so much. Sasuke's eyes widened at his sensei's declaration. He loved my brother, he didn't know what to think. He knew that Naruto wasn't lying, as all of his emotions were so clear, and the emotions evident in his shout was also a clear indicator. Naruto began to walk off in a huff. He couldn't believe that he had just lost it like that, and just spilled everything out like that. He then slowed down, a tear decorating his cheek. You're not the only one he betrayed, Sasuke, he betrayed me too. He said in an almost whisper, but Sasuke heard it nonetheless. But before the Uchiha could react, his sensei was long gone. Next day. The 3 genins of Team 7 had been waiting at their usual meeting place for a good hour, and there was still no sign of their sensei. Kiba was fuming and Akamaru was barking. Sakura also wasn't in that good a mood, but it did help that her sensei had been able to help her out with her problem the day before. Sasuke, however, was in deep thought, his mind was in utter turmoil, it kept replaying the events that happened the previous day. He loved him, but I don't know how can he act like he does, he just didn't know what to do. But he had decided that morning that he would apologize, which would be a first in a while. However, that was proving to be a bit more difficult than he at first thought, seeing as Naruto wasn't even here yet. I don't get it. Where the heck is he? Kiba shouted to no one in particular. Calm down, Kiba. I'm sure he's just being kept up somewhere, and that he'll get here any minute now. Yep, a New York minute now, she said, dragging out the last of her words. Truth was, she was beginning to get aggravated, but she didn't want to show, especially not in front of Sasuke. Another 15 minutes passed, and there was still not sign of Naruto. I think we should go look for him, Sakura finally said. The others nodded in agreement. The 3 had spent 2 hours searching before they decided to look in the large woods which were at the borders of Konoha. They jumped from tree to tree to try and find some sort of sign of their sensei, but they found none. However, they suddenly came to a clearing, one which did not look natural and new, by the look of it. It was a huge area, There were trees lying down on the grass-free earth, along with branches and such in between. There were also many craters and dents, and the whole place looked a mess. They were all wondering what could have done this until something caught their eye. Up on a high branch lay a sleeping figure. The three jumped up and landed on nearby branches to look at the sleeping figure and found it to be none other than their very own sensei. Naruto stirred as he groggily sat up once he woke up. He used one arm to lean back on whilst the other hand was used to rub the sleep out of his eyes. He looked around and noticed his team there, staring at him. "What are you?" He stopped as he realized why they were here. "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot and I guess I must have overslept." Why is everything so?" Sakura began. "Muffed up?" Kiba finished. Naruto then looked around sleepily and smiled cheekily. "Well, I guess I got a bit carried away last night, eh?" Sakura and Kiba laughed nervously, but Sasuke couldn't help but feel that all of this destruction was his fault. He even felt somewhat guilty, which was saying a lot for him. But before he could dwell any more on it, Naruto had jumped and began to explain about what they would do that day. When everyone was going about their own business, i.e. training, Sasuke walked over to Naruto. Sensei?" But he was cut off before he could say anything else. "Listen, Sasuke, I'm sorry about losing it in front of you like that last night. I guess that it is still somewhat of a sensitive topic for me, even though it was years ago. I guess I probably won't ever get over it, but that's beside the point. I'm sorry, okay? So let's just forget about yesterday and carry on as if it never happened, okay?" Sasuke took a while to absorb everything before he nodded in agreement. He offered a barely visible smile, but a smile nonetheless, which Naruto did catch, smiling back in response. Sasuke then ran back over to carry on with the routine set for the day. Naruto just leaned against the tree and thought to himself whilst watching his team train. "I really should learn to keep a straight face instead of losing it like I did. It would also save more trees from being on the other end of my fist." He chuckled lightly at his own thoughts. 1 week later. Naruto and Anko had been meeting up at the Dango cafe over the past 3 weeks whenever they both were free, which had been quite often considering that they were both busy shinobi. They would have their respected shares of Dango, and they would talk about whatever came to mind. However, they both met up earlier than usual this day, as Anko had a mission later that day and Naruto had given his team the day off that day, though he didn't specify for what reasons. They both sat at their now usual spot and began eating their Dango, silent for once, an eerie silence about them. Anko looked up to see Naruto absent-mindedly poking as random pieces of Dango, placing the odd one in his mouth when he felt that it had been poked enough. She didn't know what was wrong with the guy and frankly, it was quite annoying. She hoped that he would stop soon but he didn't, creating more frustration for her. She didn't know what to do with him. Meanwhile, Naruto was too deep in though to actually think about, or even acknowledge his tasty treat in front of him. You see, this day was a painful day for Naruto and for Sasuke for that matter, which was why he had given his team the day off. He knew Sasuke would act differently, and it would probably be hard for him, as it was on himself. He had even forgotten that Anko was there with him until her heard an over-exaggerated ahem, which had quickly caught his attention. He looked up, slightly drowsily. "I'm sorry, what were you saying?" Anko tapped a finger on her other arm as she stared at him. She was now also in deep thought. What happened to him today? If maybe it was something that happened a while ago, perhaps this is some sort of anniversary, but I don't know anything that could have happened on this day. She then tried to remember what the date was today, and when she remembered, she tried to think of something that happened this day. I can't think of anything, except for the Uchiha massacre, but why would that affect him? It hit her. When she had mentioned the guy named Tachi, it had obviously been a nickname for Itachi. Today is the anniversary of the day Uchiha Itachi killed all of the Uchihas. Except for Sasuke, so that's why he let his team have the whole day off. It was for Sasuke and himself. Perhaps it all makes sense now, though I don't like seeing him like this. "Anko, are you there?" Naruto repeated as he waved a hand over Anko's face. Suddenly, she reacted and shook her head whilst Naruto let out a small sigh of relief. He had been getting worried about her. "You okay, Anko?" "Wavya, I'm fine though, I was thinking." She paused. "That can't be good," Naruto joked, seemingly out of his earlier bad mood. Anko just smirked as she thought of how to say what she wanted to say. "You know, Naruto, we've been meeting up with each other for a while, and we've had fun, right?" "Yeah," Naruto replied, uncertain of where this was going. "So what would you say to us two going out on a date?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a date? "Yeah, unless you don't want to, of course." Naruto smirked, raising his hand up to his chin in a thinking manner, looking up in the corner of his eyes. "I'd have to think about that," he joked. His smirk then turned into a smile, looking straight into her eyes. "When and where?" was his simple reply, receiving a smile back from Anko, who was glad for 3 reasons, 1 being that Naruto's mood was lifted, 2 was her being the one able to lift it, and 3, the two of them were going to go on a date. Naruto and Anko were walking back from their first date together. They had gone out to eat and they had both found out that the other quite enjoyed pulling pranks, so they had spent a good few hours doing so, where many of their friends had become victims, Kakashi getting pranked twice. They both knew that they would be the culprits of it all, but they both thought that it was worth it in the end. It was nice to be doing one of their favorite pastimes with someone which they liked. The two were walking through the park, side by side with Anko smirking. Why was she smirking? Well, it was quite simple actually. She could see Naruto out of the corner of her eye, and she could see his hand twitching slightly, and that he looked to be a bit nervous. She knew his intentions and she thought it sweet in a way, though she was getting a bit impatient with the waiting, so she decided to do something about it. She let out a long sigh as she grabbed his hand in her own and held it tightly, though not too tightly, just perfectly in fact. He also let out a sigh of relief and turned to face Anko, with a sweet smile, as she dubbed it. She liked it, there was something there, it was kind and soft, yet it was cheeky and sly in a way. Yes, that smile had the essence of a fox in it, and she absolutely loved it, so she smiled back again. Naruto, in turn, also adored Anko's smile. He noticed that when she smiled, she closed her eyes and they became to upside-down U shapes as her smile was wide and cheerful. He could get used to that, in fact, he already was, and it didn't take that long. Now hand in hand they were walking through the park, a half-moon behind them. After a few minutes, Anko suddenly let go of Naruto's hand and freed hers from his. He stopped and looked at her confused. Well, he would have if she was facing him, as she was in fact walking away from him, towards a random tree, where she stopped, turned around to face Naruto and leaned her back against the tree. The moonlight bathed over her, and her eyes sparkled and Naruto saw the playful smile plastered on her face. Everything was silent for a few seconds before Anko broke the silence. Well, aren't you gonna come over here and kiss me? She said it almost teasingly. Naruto grinned as he walked over to her. When he stopped, he was half a meter in front of her, and he cocked his head to the side mischievously. I'm not quite sure. I'm waiting. She then fluttered her eyelashes flirtatiously. Naruto smirked as he leaned his head closer to hers, placing a hand against the bark of the tree, right next to her head, to steady him. Their lips met softly, as they shared a slow tender kiss which they held for a few seconds. Naruto broke the kiss and leaned his forehead against hers, looking into her eyes for a second before his gaze lowered and settled onto her lips, which were quickly met with his own again, except this time their kiss was harder and more lustful. Anko wrapped her arms around his neck as one hand settled around to the front of his neck whilst the other began to fiddle with his soft platinum blonde hair. Naruto's free hand reached her hips as they began to slide upwards over her waist and up until it settled on her cheek, which he promptly began to caress. Anko's grip tightened as she held Naruto closer to her, making their body touch, sending shivers of pleasure through the two of them. Naruto, not being able to wait any longer, slid his tongue across Anko's bottom lip, before nipping it with his teeth, asking for entrance, which she quickly allowed without a second thought. Naruto's tongue slid in and began to explore throughout her mouth, enjoying and soaking in her taste. Anko willingly let out a moan of pleasure at the feel of his soft tongue. She began to fight back with her own tongue, but Naruto still dominated the kiss, not that she was complaining. Anko then began to hook her leg around Naruto's, sliding it slowly up and down, its pace accelerating ever so slowly. The kiss then deepened, but it didn't last much longer as the two were running out of oxygen. The kiss broke and Naruto promptly placed his forehead against hers once again. They looked into the other's eyes and almost got lost until Naruto noted the pink blush present on Anko's cheeks, and her face in general. He also noted that he was slightly taller than her, despite the age gap of 5 years, her being the older of the two. Naruto lowered his hand from her cheeks and wrapped it around her waist, along with his other one, pulling her into a hug, which she gladly returned. Naruto turned his head inward and inhaled the scent of her hair for a few seconds, Anko getting a slight shiver from the closeness of the two. You smell good, Naruto quietly said out of thin air. Anko let out a short amused giggle, which was rare for her. You like? I bought the shampoo especially for tonight. His reply was muffled by her hair, which smelled of a combination of lavender and jasmine. Naruto brought up a hand and raked his fingers through her hair, stroking her scalp once over. He slowly loosened his grip on her until they broke away from each other, except that they were holding hands again. Naruto smiled softly at Anko before looking away, towards the direction of her apartment. The two began to walk in that direction. They took their time, walking in a comfortable silence, both of them sneaking glances at the other, and when they both looked at the same time, they would smile and look away again. Within an hour, they had reached her apartment, which was a decent-sized flat on the second floor, which was also the top floor of the building. They stopped outside the main door. You want to come inside? Anko asked softly. Not tonight, Anko-chan. I have to get up early to meet up with my Jounin team in the morning, maybe another night. He then gave her a soft peck on the lips. She looked at him in the eye, a thoughtful expression on her face. So you're implying that, Dash? That I definitely think that we should go on another date together soon. Anko leaned her head closer, quietly saying, sounds good to me. Before giving him a peck on the lips, promptly releasing herself from his grip, digging her hand into one of the many pockets on her tan trench coat, in search of her house keys, all the while keeping eye contact with Naruto. When she found them, she pulled them out and dangled them in the air, filling the hall with a jingle-like sound. I guess I'd better get going, Anko-chan, I'll see you around. He smiled and waved at her, Anko doing the same, as he turned around and left, leaving Anko still standing in the hallway. She quickly shook herself out of her daze, unlocked the door, walked in, locked the door and did whatever had to be done before going to bed, falling asleep with a small smile plastered on her face, Naruto doing the exact same thing once he reached his house. 1 week later. 3, 2, 1. Morning team. Naruto shouted out as he walked towards the 3 genins without a second to spare. Good morning, sensei. Sakura chimed. Her male teammates just grunted in response. Alright everyone, I have something to give you all, so gather around. Immediately all 3 people were sitting around him, Kiba being especially excited. Okay, Naruto dug his hand into his pocket, and when he found what he was looking for, pulled it out of his pocket. In his hand were 6 pieces of paper, 3 were about an A5 and white, whilst the other 3 were small and a cream color. He passed the 3 larger pieces around to everyone. I have nominated you all for the upcoming Chunin exams, and all you have to do is to fill in these forms which I have given you all. You have a week to decide whether or not you'll be participating or not. Naruto then looked around to study the others' faces. He could tell that Kiba was getting cocky, probably thinking that he'd get promoted to Chunin like it was nothing. Before you make your decision, let me just tell you that the Chunin exams are very difficult and many genins have died during them, so if you have even the slightest hint of doubt, it would be best for you not to participate. However, I have been training you slightly differently from how other jounins train their genin teams, so I know that you are all strong enough to participate, but it also depends on your confidence in yourself. The choice is solely yours and no one else can make it for you. There was silence for a while before Naruto spoke again. Alright, I also have something else to give you. He passed the other 3 pieces of paper around. You are Naruto, what are these for? They're all blank. Kiba stated. These, Kiba, are used to find what affinity you have. Now he pulled out another one from his pocket. I'll show you how it works, then I'll explain it all to you and then you can try. Naruto focused some of his chakra into the paper. It split in half, whilst one half turned slightly soggy and the other got a few flames started, but not enough to burn the whole half. Naruto looked around at the others and saw that they were staring intently at the pieces of paper. Okay, since mine was cut in half first, that means I have an affinity for wind. However, because one half also turned slightly soggy, it means that I have a lesser affinity for water, along with fire since the other half combusted a little. Normally, ninjas only have one affinity, but Jounin ranks and above can sometimes gain another affinity. Okay, to test out your affinity, you must concentrate some of your chakra into your piece of paper, and then we just have to see what happens. Also, if it crumbles, it means you have an affinity for lightning, while if it turns to dust, you have an affinity for earth, understood? Good, now why don't you all have a go? And so they did. Sakura was the first to get as hers turned soggy. Sasuke got it next and his erupted into flames. Kiba got it soon after and his turned to dust. Alright, so that means that Sakura has an affinity for water types, Sasuke has one for fire types whilst Kiba has one for earth types. It's good to have a combination on a team. Now, there are 2 reasons as to why I tested to see which affinity you all had. 1, I was curious, and 2, I'm going to teach you all a jutsu each which is in your affinity category. I'll give you each a scroll with it in and then you have this week to learn it before going to the Chunin exams, that is, if you decide to participate altogether. He looked around again and nodded to himself, as his hand dug into another pocket, brining out 3 scrolls. He gave the first one to Sasuke. This contains everything that you need to know for Katan, Karya Enden, Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Missile, which is a B-rank jutsu. I know that you have all of your clan's C-rank jutsus, so that is why I'm giving you a B-rank. The next one was given to Kiba. This one contains everything that you need to know for Doton, Dochu Igyo no Jutsu, Earth Release, Underground Projection Fish Technique, which is a C-rank. However, it is a very useful one. I know that your attacks are mainly offensive, which is why I have given you a defensive jutsu. Not many ninja know this one, so consider yourself lucky. And finally Sakura, this scroll contains everything that you need to know about Suetun, Teppadama, Water Release, Gunshot, which, like Kiba's, is also a C-rank jutsu. However, unlike Kiba, you don't have that many offensive jutsus, which is why you have received this one. Okay everyone, keep these scrolls and you all have a week to learn them. There will otherwise be no training from me, but you may come to me if you need any help, alright? Good. See ya. and he disappeared in a poof. Hey! He clearly showed favoritism by giving Sasuke a higher rank jutsu than us. Kiba complained as soon as Naruto was gone. Don't say that, Kiba. Naruto-sensei treated us all equally because he gave you that defensive jutsu. He even said that not many people knew yours, so that makes yours equally as good. Besides, it doesn't matter what rank a jutsu is, it all depends on how well you use it, like those E-rank jutsus which we learnt at the academy. I read that they are still used by ninja who have even achieved the rank of ANBU. Yeah, but his is still better, he complained, again, but this time he used a more winny voice. Okay Kiba, think of it this way, if you two ever end up sparring, and he uses that jutsu, you can use yours to dodge it. Kiba thought for a minute before a smile grew across his face. That's right. Because I got an awesome jutsu. And with that he ran off, with Akamaru by his side. Sakura slapped herself on the forehead for his stupidity. She then removed her hand and looked around her when her gaze landed on a particular person. A smile grew on her face as well. Oh Sasuke-kun, since we haven't got any training for a while, how's about we go on a date? All the while saying this, she had been inching closer, stopping less than a meter away from him. No. And with that, he left as well, off to find a different training ground so that he could get to work on learning the new jutsus that he had been given. Sakura let out a sigh as she looked at her watch to see what time it was. I guess I'm off to ballet then, she declared as she began to walk off. However, there had been someone else there, who had heard what Sakura had just said. Forehead girl, don't tell me that you take ballet lessons, that's for children, the blonde said as she emerged from the bushes. Said pink-haired girl spun around to see who had spoken, though she knew who it was by the nickname. Pig, what are you doing here? I came to see Sasuke-kun training, but he's obviously not here, you probably scared him off or something. Anyway, why are you taking ballet lessons anyway? Shouldn't you be doing something better like training or something? Trust me, I know what I'm doing. But why ballet? Sakura smiled sweetly and she leaned her head closer, so that her lips were near Ino's ear, like she was about to whisper something to her. Say CRT. She chanted slowly, a vein appearing on Ino's forehead. The vein disappeared as she smirked. Oh, I get it, you think that Sasuke-kun will fall for you if you can do ballet. I'm sorry to say this, forehead girl, but Sasuke-kun will never fall for you, for it is me that he truly desires, and even if he did like girls who did ballet, which he doesn't, he still wouldn't fall for you, so tough luck. Now Sakura smirked. That's not why I'm doing ballet, my purpose is much greater than that. And with that, she walked away, leaving a very confused Ino behind, all alone. 1 week later. Sasuke and Kiba, who was naturally with Akamaru as well, were both standing outside of the building where they were to go for the Chunin exams. They were waiting for their female teammate to arrive, though they thought it strange that she wasn't there yet, maybe she chickened out. However, before they could think any further on that subject, said Kunoichi arrived, though there was something different about her, and neither of them could place their finger on it, until Kiba finally noticed. Hey Sakura, you changed your clothes, he declared. Sakura looked down at her body and up again to meet Kiba's gaze. Yep, I sure did. She now wore a red tank top, like in the Shippuden, her usual black undershorts, her usual blue shinobi sandals, and she wore a midnight blue skirt which reached just below her knees, but had a slit on either side which reached to about the top of her hip. Think 2 pieces of fabric, one of the front and one on the back, which are attached by stitchings. This is made for movement. She had also put her hair up in a tight bun, with 2 bangs framing her face and her hitai tied around her forehead. Her pouches and such were in their usual positions. She also had a scroll strapped to either thigh. Hey Sakura, what's with the new look? Kiba asked. It gives me more freedom in my moves. Kiba nodded in acceptance of the answer, which was the real reason as to why she had changed her attire. Sasuke narrowed his eyes when he saw the scrolls. Sakura. She turned to him with stars in her eyes. Yes, what is it, Sasuke-kun? Why do you have scrolls? Well, they have something which I may need sealed inside them. Which is? Say CRT, but I'll tell you if you agree to go on a date with me. No. Oh, okay, anyway, should we go inside? The other 2 nodded, so all 3 went inside. Without having to meet with his genin team, Naruto was considerably bored. He couldn't visit Anko either, as she was preparing for the second part of the exam. He snickered slightly to himself about that. He wished he could be there to see all of their faces. He knew what she could be like, but that was one of the things he liked about her. She was individual and she wasn't a pushover. He knew that from personal experience, as they'd also trained together, the pair of them. At first, he hadn't been going all out on her. He didn't want to hurt her after all. But she didn't take that too well, and let's just say that he envied a turtle for the simply fact that they had a shell to hide in. Anko couldn't be downright scary when she wanted to be, which was why he didn't envy the Chunin candidates. He smiled to himself, proud that his team had all chosen to enter the exams on their own accord. He didn't imagine that being a sensei could make one feel so good. He might take one another team when his current one had been promoted to higher status. Maybe. Or perhaps not. It probably wouldn't be the same. Grumble. Naruto blushed at the noise his stomach made, but he got the message loud and clear. Time to visit the old man, he said happily to himself as he jumped up onto the roof of a nearby building so that it would be easier to, and faster, to get to Ichiraku. When he reached his destination, he sat down in his usual stool. Naruto. Said person looked up to find I am standing there in front of him, behind the counter, a big smile plastered on her face. He smiled back at her. I haven't seen you in ages, why haven't you visited us? She pouted, looking hurt, though Naruto could easily see the amusement present in her eyes. Naruto simply shrugged. I guess I've been spending a lot of time training my Jounin team and then any extra time I spend with Anko-chan. Anko-chan? She smiled and raised an eyebrow. Say, have you got yourself a new girlfriend? Which finished with a wink. Yeah, he replied softly, having a faraway look in his eyes. But he was brought out of whatever he was thinking about by a loud squeal coming from the brunette. Ah. That's so cute. Naruto blushed lightly, but I am caught it. Have I met her? She asked, generally curious. I don't think so, but she's got purple hair, up in a ponytail, and always wears a tan trench coat. Thank God, the last bit was whispered to himself, but I am caught it nonetheless. What do you mean by that? Oh well, you see, she kinda has a very individual choice of clothing. It's kinda, well, revealing, and the trench coat is the only thing covering her up properly. Naruto blushed as he scratched the back of his head. Iam's eyes widened. You're dating her? Which was followed by her waving her arms round animatedly, which, surprisingly, Naruto managed to understand as her describing Anko. Yep. Iam blinked owlishly. What? Do I have something on my face? Oh no, you don't. I just didn't think that was the type of person you'd go after. I mean, she's pretty, of course, but what? She giggled slightly. I don't know, I guess you're just growing up is all. Naruto's eye twitched, followed by a vein appearing on his forehead. I'm not a kid, you know, besides, you're only a year older than me. And I technically became an adult when I became a Jounin. Calm down, would you? People are staring at you. And indeed they were. Sorry. It's okay, so what made you go for her, and not me? You know that you're my sister, it'd be like incest or something. Ruffled Naruto's hair. Yeah, I know, kiddo. She was gone as soon as that was said. Stop calling me that. Chunin exams, room 301. Congratulations, you all pass. Ibiki declared after he had had his fun with torturing their minds. He applauded himself for getting rid of so many teams, though there were still 26 left over. But 26 out of 138 was pretty good. A lot of teams had entered this year, but that didn't mean that they were all ready. She should be coming soon, he thought to himself, grimacing as he wondered what would be broken this time. He looked behind himself, looking at the desk which was there. It was new, the last one had well died, for a lack of better words. He mentally shivered. Anko was scary, and that meant a lot coming from him, considering who it was and what he did for a living. He just felt sorry for whatever sucker would end up with her. At Ichiraku ramen. Achoo. I hope you're not coming down with a cold, Naruto, Iam said. No, I don't get ill, so someone must be talking about me, he deduced. Back to room 301. Fway smash. Of course it just had to be the window, didn't it? Anko Ibiki though to himself. Alright, maggots. You've all got exactly 20 minutes until you have to meet me at training grounds 44, and if any one of you are late, if even by a single second, then the whole of your team is disqualified. Protests were about to be set in motion, however, they were interrupted by Anko. What are you all waiting for? Move it! Everyone was gone a second later. Anko smiled to herself. She turned around when she heard some grumbling behind her. Just one time where she doesn't break anything, but no, that's never gonna happen. I'll lighten up, Ibiki. She glomped him. I'm sure you secretly enjoy it, I know I do. Sorry, Anko, you're not my type. He was promptly released. I'm not your type. Well, I don't care. I already got myself a great man, she declared as she pumped her fist in the air. I feel sorry for him. What was that? Nothing, Anko, nothing at all. Poor guy doesn't know what he got himself into though. Knowing Anko, he may not have had a choice. I saw her looking at that academy teacher a few times some months ago. Maybe it's him. I hope it isn't for his sake. He's too soft to let her down. Hello, anybody there? Waha? Shouldn't you be going to meet the Jounins? No, I think I'll make them wait and enjoy the view of the forest. She chuckled to herself at the thought. Okay, do whatever you like, Anko, as long as it doesn't involve me, that is, he thought as he crept out of the room. Ichiraku ramen. That really hit the spot, he said as he rubbed his belly. Well, you're always welcome, Naruto, anytime. He said as he stretched his arms above his head, only for his eyes to fly open when he felt something warm and soft on his lips. Hiya, Naruto-kun. Anko-chan, you scared me. Well, I just couldn't resist, it was just too tempting to pass up. She smiled. Anko-chan, not that I don't appreciate you being here, but aren't you supposed to be at the second part of the Chunin exams or something? Well, yeah, but they can wait cause I want to be here with you, she said as she sat down on his lap. Naruto pecked her on the lips twice, his arms settling around her. But you can't just leave them there. She then feinted mocked. Naruto-kun doesn't want Anko-chan here with him, he don't like Anko-chan. Twitch. How about I walk you there? The two were gone, all that was left of them was the payment for the ramen. 5 minutes later. Hand in hand, Naruto and Anko made their way to Training Grounds 44. 2 minutes earlier, they had been busy making out in an alleyway as Anko had claimed that she had missed Naruto terribly and that she couldn't remember what he tasted like, so she had to find out. Naruto, being the ever-lovable guy, couldn't refuse, even if the excuse reminded him of something Kakashi might come up with when he was with one of his many girlfriends. Well, he'd never actually had a girlfriend, he'd simply had a lot of experience in the field, as one might say. Anyway, Anko was having a great day, and that was an understatement. She had just had a great make-out session with Naruto, and now she got to torture all of the wannabe Chunins for a whole 5 days. And to top it all off, she just found a coupon for 3 for 2 at the Dango Cafe in today's newspaper. She was most definitely going there later on today, and a certain someone was going to accompany her. They stopped when they could just about make out the Genins in the distance. It was much easier to see the forest, as the trees were exceptionally huge. Naruto placed a soft kiss on her lips before stepping back a few steps, the only like between them being the hands which were still clasped together. I'll be going now and don't scare them too much, they're only kids. Humph, says the one who took this exam when he was 8 years old. Honestly, they shouldn't be here if they can't handle it. Okay then, just don't do something I wouldn't do. But then I would be me, now would I? Naruto began walking off, waving back at her as she stood there. I love you, Anko, he shouted back at her. She gasped. He said that he said that he loves me. Oh, I should say it back. I love you too, Naruto-kun. Just outside Training Grounds 44. Where is that hag? The boy grumbled as he paced back and forths. Calm down, Kiba, she's only 20 minutes late. Maybe this is part of the test or something, to test our patience, Sakura suggested. Yeah. That's gotta be it. I knew that was what was happening. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to. Sakura had to keep herself from punching Kiba for idiocy. Meanwhile, Sasuke was sitting on the ground, ignoring his dog-like teammate, and was thinking of the first and only jutsu that his sensei had given him. He'd been practicing the whole week except for the previous day, as he had to make sure that he was in top shape for the Chunin exams. He's gotten it down on the 4th day of practice, but he'd only been able to produce 2 whole ones. He'd feel drained afterwards as well, which was why he'd visited his sensei and asked him for advice about expanding his chakra capacity. He's, of course, been delighted help and was proud that Sasuke hadn't been too prideful to ask for help, which he would have been when the teams were first made. He raised his wrist and looked at the runic seal that was there. It made it harder for the chakra to get around the body and made one have to work harder to do what would normally have been easy. He'd had it on for the last 3 days, and this morning he had released it, and he could feel the slight increase in his chakra stores. He wondered if either of the other two had visited their sensei for extra help. Sakura may have, but I'm sure that Kiba hasn't. He may have been tempted, but he wouldn't give in like that. He's too stubborn idiot. Sasuke. He simply raised an eyebrow at Kiba, after being caught staring at the brown-haired boy. You see something you like? The dog-love challenged. Sasuke-kun isn't gay, Kiba, Sakura shouted as she finally bashed him on the head. I guess one good thing came of having fangirls. If someone annoys me, I could just send a herd of them at them, and I'd never see them again, but the cons far outweigh that single pro. Okay, brats. This is where you will all be taking the next part of the exam. This is Training Grounds 44, or more commonly known as the Forest of Death. Each group will receive either a Heaven Scroll or an Earth Scroll, and you will have 5 days in which to obtain the one you need from another team, by any means necessary. This area has a 10-kilometer radius, and in the center is a tower, which you are to reach when you have one of each scrolls in your inventory. But before you can begin, you must sign these forms, which state that I cannot be held responsible for any of your deaths. Anko then crossed her arms and had a very pleased expression on her face as she saw that people were beginning to have doubts whether or not to continue. She then laid her eyes on a brown-haired kid whose left eye was twitching. I wonder what's wrong with him. Whilst his thoughts were, so this test wasn't about patience. Why, you old hag, I'll get you back for this. Anko then noticed him giving her evils, so she decided to have some fun now that Naruto was gone. She stealthily got out a kunai and threw it at Kiba, the edge of the weapon grazing his cheek, drawing blood. He yelped in surprise. The next second, he found something soft and squishy pressed against his back along with hot breath on his neck. He shivered at the feel of it as he realized that the proctor wasn't where she was a few seconds ago. He yelped again when he felt her lick his blood right off of his cheek. He stood there, frozen, with his knees shaking. It wasn't the best blood I've had, but it wasn't too bad I guess for a mutt. Normally, Kiba would have retorted to something like that, but he was way too scared to do that right now. Besides, he doubted that he couldn't even produce a sound from his mouth, let alone a single coherent word. Anko smiled deviously at the expression plastered on the genin's face. She did this every year, and the reaction was always similar, yet the details always varied. This was why she always volunteered to be a proctor for this part of the exam. Anko was too caught up to realize that someone was approaching her. She felt a tap on her back and immediately turned around to see that it was one of the grassneens, holding her kunai with the person's outstretched tongue. Here you go. Thanks. Anko then took the slightly wet kunai and returned to where she left off. Okay, the forms will be given round, and when your team has signed them, line up so that you may enter the tent over there to hand them in and receive your team's scroll. 10 minutes later and everyone was ready, standing outside their designated gates, waiting for the go-ahead and for the gates to open. Many were sweating with anticipation and anxiousness, but they were all too determined to quit. See you all in 5 days hopefully. Now begin. And the gates swung open and all of the teams disappeared into the forest. Naruto was walking back from training ground 44 after dropping off Anko there. He was whistling a happy tune whilst he had his arms crossed behind his neck when he suddenly stopped, eyes wide. She said she all loved me? It's times like these that I remember that you're blonde, the demon muttered to himself, though he purposely said it loud enough for the Jounin to hear it. Boy. Forgetting completely where he was previously heading, he ran straight back home, closed and locked the door, and went up the stairs to his bedroom, throwing himself down on his bed. He lay there, motionless, with his pillow held tightly in his arms. His whole body was tense. Though he was happy, really, he was sad as well, and even more scared, so much so that all happiness was forgotten. His frame shook lightly, but no tears were shed, no matter how much they threatened to. He wouldn't cry. It had been over 4 years since that day. It should be forgotten, there was no reason why it should affect him now. He repeated this to himself, though he knew that it was no use. It didn't matter how it should be like, it just was. Cammy, I feel like a 10-year-old girl, and he hated admitting it. Jounin lounged in the tower in the forest of death. Kakashi was having a good day. Heck, it was a day like any other, but he enjoyed routine, it made life so much easier. You knew what to predict and there were no surprises to interrupt the flow. He was sitting in the lounge in the tower which all of the genins would reach, well, the ones who passed anyway. There were also the few unlucky who wouldn't make it to see another day, but that was life. Harsh, yes, but true. However, something was off and he just couldn't point his finger on it. It made him uneasy and he didn't like that feeling. Something was going on and he couldn't for the life of him figure it out, and it annoyed him to no ends. This was why he couldn't focus on his book, even if it looked like he was reading it to anyone who didn't know him well enough. He had been on the same page for a good while now, and that was just not acceptable. Wham! He was interrupted from his thoughts by the door, which had unceremoniously been slammed open and shut within a millisecond. He looked up to find the proctor of the second exam, one Mitarashi Anko. She seemed a bit cheerier than usual, he supposed. Heck, she was always smiling and goofing around, but it was easy to see that the smiles didn't always reach her eyes. However, today it seemed like it did, and the pure happiness looked genuine. So much so that it looked like she would burst any second from the overdose of it. Now that he thought about it, she had been a lot happier the last few months for some reason. He was sure he knew, but he was too lazy to even try to remember. Damn it, why couldn't it just have been a normal day? It would be so much easier and not as much effort was needed. What the? Did he just hear what he thought he heard? Was Anko humming? And something girly? Something was off here. He looked across the room and checked the calendar. Okay then, it wasn't the 1st of April, so it wasn't April Fool's, but what then could it be? Anko-san? Are you alright? HMHMHMMO Oh, you day something, Kakashi? Stuck in her own little dream world. I was just wondering if something was bothering you. You seem a bit off today, if you don't mind me saying so. I'm just super duper extraordinary happy. She finished this off with a giggle whilst a sweat drop made itself known on Kakashi's forehead. Right, care to elaborate? She literally glided along the floor and slid onto the couch with such elegance that he would have never believed it had he not seen it with his own eye. His Sharingan was covered up. She then let out a gentle sigh. Kakashi was beginning to sweat, Something was obviously amiss, and for it to have affected Anko in such a way it must have been something big. At his awaiting raised eyebrow, she simply answered my boyfriend and left it at that like it was the answer to all the world's problems. Kakashi thought for a second and remembered that Naruto was her boyfriend. He didn't know what he saw in her, but to be honest, he shouldn't say anything as he himself had habits which people didn't understand, though Naruto did. He really took the saying underneath to heart, which made him proud to call him friend. He looked again at Anko, and he could literally see hearts in her eyes. He mentally face-palmed. That look reminded him of one of Naruto's fangirls. Yes, he had those, a whole club of them to be precise. But he knew how to avoid them. But that just made them more persistent. He tried the nice guy approach, by telling them that he was flattered that they admired him, but then gently turned them down, saying that he wasn't ready for another relationship or that he wasn't interested in them like they were him. But that just made them love him more. But when he started going out with that Inuzuka, Hana, he remembered, she was able to get them to back of her boyfriend at the time, though ex now. He believed that they were still friends. Looking at Anko, he realized that Naruto liked the kinda girl or was different from the normal girl, one who would spend hours doing their hair and makeup and whatnot. He didn't go for that type. And he couldn't blame him. If he counted correctly, Anko would be Naruto's sixth girlfriend and their relationship would, so far, be Naruto's second longest, with his and Hana's being the longest of 8 months. He really should find a hobby, rather than pondering on Naruto's love life. How did he even get to this topic in the first place? Oh right, Anko's strange behavior. Anyway, point is he'd seen that look before. 2 of his girlfriends had also had that look, and when that happened, their relationship ended shortly, though Naruto was very kind about it. He pitied Anko. Now it seemed that their relationship wouldn't last much longer. Naruto had been scared about getting in too deeply with someone for understanding reasons. At first, he had been adamant with even going on a date, but Iruka had been there to help him all the way through, even going on a double date with him. He had improved a lot, but he still desperately tried to avoid getting too involved in fear of a repeat happening. But he could understand others falling for Naruto. I mean, come on, he's a great guy with a good heart and good looks, not that he thought of him in that way. He liked women, thank you very much. But he was just saying. Young love is so complicated, was his resulting though. Not that he was old or anything, far from it in fact. He was only 26, in his prime for Kami's sake. He had many admirers. Though it's been a while since I met up with a woman. He shook his head. He didn't want to think about that right now. He still had the Anko problem. He shuddered as he imagined what she would be like once Naruto and her were through. He saw 2 possible outcomes. 1, depression, she'd whine and cry and act like a 4-year-old who didn't get a cookie when they wanted one, or 2, she would be angry and or mad, and even more sadistic than she already was, which was an incredibly scary thought. And knowing here, she wouldn't be afraid to vent some of it on him. Damn it. Okay, so he had to be optimistic. Maybe perhaps there was the slightest chance that she would be the one to end it or not, she looked too happy. Or they might come to an agreement, or something similar. He hoped so. He looked over to Anko again, to find her staring out of the window, with a dreamy look on her face which he's never seen there before. It didn't fit as well as it might have on a more girly woman, but it suited her. He smiled slightly. She looked good with the light from the sun shining on her face and glistening off of her hair. No! Bad Kakashi, she's Naruto's girlfriend, she's off boundaries. He shook his head slightly. He idly wondered whether or not he should warn her about what would most likely be happening soon. Anko-san. Oh, it's wonderful, Kakashi, just wonderful, damn it, now it's going to be harder to warn her. I feel like such a girl when I think about him, and at first I was scared as hell cause I don't want to be a sissy, but then I started to accept it, you know? She then promptly sat up and leaned forward so that her elbows were on her knees and her head resting in her palms. At first, it was kinda cool, you know, cause we got to know each other before anything and he didn't just go after me cause of these. She pushed her up to prove her point, and it was nice meeting someone who would treat you like a friend, but be more than that. But now a pleasant sigh escaped her lips. But now we're so much more. I love him. Kakashi's one visible eye bulged out of his eye socket for a millisecond when he heard that. Poor thing. And do you know what else, Kakashi? He said he loved me too. She fell backwards and landed with her back on the back of the couch, sighing dreamily. He said that? That's at first I was getting worried there for a second, but he's never said that to anyone before, so why now? Maybe he's finally found someone who he can let in all the way. I mean, it was fine at first seeing as he had friends, but he does need someone who he can trust not only with his life, but his heart too. I'm pretty good at this deep stuff. He then giggled slightly to himself. I wonder how he feels at the moment. I mean, saying that you love someone is quite a large step in a relationship. Last time Okami, last time Itachi. If Naruto's thinking of that now, then he needs someone. Anko, no, she's the proctor of the second exam, she can't go, Besides, she doesn't quite know what happened. I need Irika, I'm no good at this stuff, that's Irika's department. I gotta go, Anko-san. And he sped off. Wow, it was nice talking to you, Kakashi. Thanks for listening. She bellowed after him as she flung herself back down on the couch. Academy? Alright class, your test results have most definitely improved, however, they are still not high enough, so there'll be another test next week on Monday, so study hard during the weekend to improve your grades. And if they still aren't high enough, then you'll continue to be tested on the same subject until your score is good enough, then we'll move on after that. However, today will be. Irika! Was heard being shouted from outside the door in the hallway somewhere. The door slammed open and there stood a nervous-looking Kakashi. What's wrong, Kakashi? Irika asked, alarm easily noticeable in his voice. It's Naruto. Irika's eyes widened when he heard that. Though he didn't know what was wrong, he knew it was bad by the way Kakashi looked. He was about to run out the door when he remembered he had a class going on at the moment. Why don't you all go home and do questions 11 to 43 on page 96? I'll be collecting these tomorrow, so I expect them done. And with that he ran out the door in the direction of Naruto's house, which, unfortunately, was on the opposite side of Konoha. Heading towards Naruto's apartment. Irika was running as fast as he could across the rooftops with Kakashi by his side and was running at the same pace as him, though Irika knew that he could run much faster than this. What's wrong, Kakashi? What's going on with Naruto? Kakashi could hear how frantic Irika sounded about Naruto, and he couldn't blame him. Irika and Naruto were close, very close, like brotherly close. Irika had been the one who helped Naruto 4 years ago. Everyone had tried, but it was Irika who had succeeded. I'm not sure if he's okay or not, I haven't seen him, but I just have this feeling that something is amiss. I was talking to Anko not too long ago, and she said that she loved him after Irika nodded to confirm that he had taken in everything so far. Kakashi continued. Shit. She could see that whatever had happened had most definitely not been all that great. And if it had happened 4 years ago, then it was the same year as the massacre. I was put into the academy a year earlier than the rest. The Sandaime wanted to get me started early so that I could defend myself better since the orphanage. He trailed off slightly as his thoughts turned his early childhood. A bitter smile made itself known on his face. The other kids there didn't like that and began to bully me. I ignored it all and trained hard, read and did everything that was expected along with extra credit. That all just made it worse. They all hated me for it. Their parents had also told them about certain occupants. Naruto placed a hand on his stomach where the seal was. All of them hated me except for one. He couldn't care less. He was quiet and didn't mingle with the others. Itachi had always been like that. He was the top of the class, so he had all the girls swooning after him, even the older ones, as he was a protege. But one day, when he had to spar in pairs, the two of us we paired off together. Itachi always won his spars, so it was only natural for everyone to assume that he would win against me. But he didn't. It was a tie. He was more skilled than me, everyone could see that, but I never gave up. Whenever I was down I got straight back up again and battled twice as hard. I got a lot of hits into a small fond yet sad smile made its way across Naruto's face. Something changed in his eyes. He'd accepted my existence. That was the first time anyone near my age had done that. Tears had suddenly begun to pour down Naruto's face. Not just trickles, but endless rivers. Naruto raised a fist to try and dry some away, but it was useless as many more came running down. He felt a comforting squeeze on his shoulder as Anko tried to comfort him, but it didn't bring him out of it. His eyes, though now glistening with more tears, still had that far-off glaze. From then on, he saw me as a rival. And he, in turn, became mine. We trained harder, worked harder, and did everything to best the other, and before we knew it, we'd been moved up 2 years. Throughout that, we didn't notice how far behind we'd left our classmates. But we still carried on trying to best the other. Our rivalry it had turned into friendship. He'd become my first friend. I was so happy. His knees had now been drawn up and he was hugging them close to his chest. We spent all of our time together, whether it was training, eating and just hanging out, we were inseparable. Because of this, we graduated after only 1 year in the academy, making him 7 and myself 6. We were placed on the same genin team along with another genin who passed at the same time at us. She was 12, the normal age of a rookie genin. We had great teamwork, though she didn't want to stick around when we weren't training or doing missions, but that was completely fine with us. After 2 years, we entered the Chunin exams and all 3 of us became Chunins. That was also the time I met Irika. He was also taking part in the Chunin exams at the same time as we were. He was 16 then. My second friend. Naruto turned his attention to Anko for the first time since he began talking, his eyes glistening with tears yet to come. His eyes were warm and a bit goofy when he spoke the next sentence. That was also when we first met in the hospital. Anko smiled at him, which seemed to make him continue talking. He looked away again as he continued. We did everything together. We did all of our Chunin duties together, even stayed with the other for guard duty. 2 years later, we were set to take the Jounin exams. They were harder than the Chunins, and it felt so strange in the Jounin exams are taken individually rather than in pairs. This meant that we were apart for 2 months. We'd never been apart from each other that long before. And you know the saying distance makes the heart grow fonder. Well, that was certainly true for us. Nothing could break us apart. We did everything together, and for Konoha. That was our Nindo. But we didn't become Jounins, no. Instead, we were asked to join the ANBU trainee program, where they would train us until they saw us fit to become fully fledged ANBU. This cut us off from everything else, but we still had each other. We started to become even more we. Anko could tell that Naruto was struggling to find the right words, but she stayed silent so as not to disturb Naruto. She knew that it was hard for Naruto to retell and relive this, but she felt honored and happy that he trusted her enough to tell her this. Warning! Naruto will go on to talk about the start of their relationship and such only minor yaoi, and in the past tense. Other information is also here, so it is advised that you read it, or it will be missed. There was more physical contact between us. Just simple things like encouraging hugs, pats on the back, a comforting hand, just simple little touches. We didn't see it coming, we didn't notice where this was going. But one day we were just hanging out, and we were laughing about something silly until we noticed how close our faces were and all laughter stopped, time seemed to stop, and we kissed. Anko had no idea how she was supposed to feel at the moment, but she'd wait until later to think about it. But it scared her how emotionless Naruto's eyes were at the moment. They were completely blank. His posture was loose, but no emotion was shown now. It wasn't perfect or anything, far from it, but it triggered something. We didn't talk about it for days, but then it happened again whilst we were on a mission. After the mission was complete, we talked about it. And we decided to try it out. It felt right. After a few months, things progressed. We decided to become. We were then officially dating. We would hold hands, hug, and sometimes kiss. Neither of us were 100% sure of how things were done, but we just did what we wanted. After half a year together, we were officially ANBU. Half a year later, Itachi was made an ANBU captain. They'd wanted to make me one too, but I refused to be separated from Itachi, so I became his second in command. We were the youngest ANBU there, Itachi being 13 and myself being 12. Yaoi finished. Naruto paused for a few minutes and Anko could feel him shaking slightly, so she hugged him tighter than she had been previously. Everything had been going so well. Nothing was wrong, but one day I noticed that something was wrong with Itachi. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but I knew him. I really knew him, so I could see that something was bothering him. I asked him what was wrong, and he denied anything being wrong. I knew he was lying. The next morning I found out that his cousin had been found dead in a river, so I assumed that had been why Itachi had been a bit off. But 3 days later, his clan and they were. Calm down, it's alright. Naruto had been hysterical at the end of it, and Anko knew that he was talking about the Uchiha clan massacre. Naruto was clinging onto her like a lifeline, afraid to let go. A few minutes passed where nothing was said, and the only sounds made were Naruto's cries and Anko's gentle shoos. He just left. Naruto stated. It sounded empty. Everything just ended. He had been everything that I had, my life, my constant. For 6 years we had been inseparable, and then he just leaves. He didn't even say anything to me or even see me. He was just gone. My whole world had just been destroyed. I'd lost everything. I didn't know what to do. That's why I got so scared, because all of these emotions which I've kept dormant for 4 years have resurfaced, and I'm truly terrified. I've literally been scarred for life in more ways than one. Naruto let his eyes fall to his hands, which he clenched and then unclenched. Anko furrowed her eyebrows in confusion. She picked up Naruto's hands and placed them on her cheeks. What's wrong with your hands? Naruto gently pulled his hands away so that they were far enough away from her not to harm her. He clenched his fists again, this time sending a small amount of chakra there as well, and his blades came shooting straight out from in between his knuckles. Naruto just stared at them with an impassive interest. In a bland voice, he stated, much like one would the weather, I was going to use these to kill myself. You what? Anko all but shrieked. She couldn't believe what she just heard. He was going to kill himself. She suddenly found her heart beating hard against her chest at the thought of it. She could hardly breathe. But he said that he was going to kill himself, which meant that he didn't go through with it. Or something had interrupted him. But what? Or who? Naruto, she didn't know how she was supposed to react to this. This was a completely different side of Naruto. She'd never had guessed that he'd been like that. It was unbelievable, to say the least. Meanwhile, Naruto had turned to look at Anko to see her reaction, but her eyes looked completely empty, and her posture was stiff whilst she was shaking slightly as well. After retracting his claws, he gently took Anko's hands into his own, and was surprised to find that they had gone cold, as they were usually warm and soothing. After a while, she locked her eyes with his, and Naruto could see that she didn't quite understand something, so he waited until she could talk. A few minutes passed before she spoke. What you said that you were going to kiki yourself, why? What happened to change your what stopped you from? Naruto smiled softly at her before he answered. I was lucky enough to have a friend as great as Irika who was always there for me. Anko suddenly understood why Irika and Naruto were so close now. She'd always wondered as she could tell that Irika had such a large soft spot for the blonde, but it all made sense to her now. Irika had literally saved Naruto's life. But she could tell that there was still a lot which Naruto hadn't told her yet, but she could also see that he wouldn't reveal any more of what had happened, but she was okay with that. He'd completely trusted her, and with that she just knew, that this would make them closer, that what they had was important to the both of them. A grin which literally split Anko's face in two made itself known in her face before she launched herself at him with all her might, making him fall back on his back on the couch with her on top, smothering his face with butterfly kisses. Naruto was baffled. He didn't know what brought this on, but who was he to complain? He liked the attention. After a few moments of more butterfly kisses, Anko finally stopped, ending it with a long peck on his lips. She laughed when she saw the expression on his face. It was quite comical. He looked like a confused kid. So cute. You okay, Naruto? She asked. Naruto blinked before he slowly nodded, as if her was weary of Anko. Anko giggled before she jumped up and began to drag him out of the room. Where are you taking me, Anko-chan? He asked, generally confused. I'm starving, so we're going to get some dango. Naruto looked around the room in disbelief. He knew that his love for both ramen and dango was unhealthy, but her obsession made his look like he despised the foods. Naruto smiled. That's Anko for you. 3 days had passed, and it would soon be the end of the second exam. So far, 5 teams had made it to end with both scrolls, one of them even beating the old record, the only team remaining from the village hidden in the sand. But there was one team which Naruto just knew should have passed by now, but they had to be seen. Naruto knew his team was capable of at least making it past the second round. He'd been toughening them up through the months in which he had been their sensei. They had the strength, stamina, intelligence, and determination to get through. So why were they still missing? He had been pacing back and forth for the last hour and a half. People who walked past could tell that he was both nervous and worried. He didn't try to hide it. He knew that the Chunin exams were dangerous. Jounin died in the exams for Kami's sake. But that didn't mean that his team would. Would they? No, he shouldn't doubt them. He needed to have faith in his team. If he didn't, then who would? They would be fine. They were just a little belated. Yes, that was it. They were probably just taking their time getting to the tour or decided that they rather enjoyed being in the forest. He growled in frustration. That didn't make sense. But he was worried. There was no denying it. Near the beginning of the exams, 3 bodies had been found outside of the forest with their faces missing. And that was a rather disturbing thought. It meant that there was someone in the exam who shouldn't be there, someone who was too powerful to be a genin nearly Chunin. But there were 25 other teams out there, so what were the odds that his team would run into them? Only 4%, so why should he worry? Naruto jumped when he heard a bell ring. He paled. That was the bell that signified the end of the second exam. No. He jumped again when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around only to come face to face with his girlfriend who had an insane grin on her face. Looks like your brats just made it on time. They only had 2 minutes to spare. As soon as she said that, he let out a long sigh of relief. They made it, thank Kami. They made see Naruto. There was nothing to be worried about. How are they? He asked. I dunno, haven't seen them, she simply answered. But they're in the medic's quarter getting a checkup in case you want to see them, she suggested, which was answered by Naruto nodding and heading towards where his team would be, though not before he placed a soft kiss on her lips. When he got there, he saw his team just standing up, meaning that they had just finished. Naruto-sensei. Sakura cheered as soon as she spotted the blonde. She rushed up to him and then stopped, as if unsure as to what she should do. She couldn't exactly hug him or anything. Hey everyone, he mumbled as he looked at the 3 of them, inspecting their health and to see if there was anything different about them, other than the obvious exhaustion and the scratches that were littered here and there. That was all normal. He then saw that Sakura looked nervous, as if she wanted to tell him something but didn't at the same time. He then noticed that Sasuke's jaw was tense. Kiba also looked a bit fidgety now that he looked closer. They were hiding something from him. He began walking towards the door and motioned for them to follow him, which they did. After a while, they stopped in the canteen, which was now empty of everyone bar the lunch lady who was still there. After they'd all gotten something to eat, He led them over to a table which was situated in the far corner, and waited a while before he spoke. What happened out there? Just by the sound of his voice they could hear that this was serious, and that he wouldn't accept anything but the truth and the whole truth. They all looked at each other, silently asking who should speak first. Sasuke decided that he should, as it mainly focused on him. We ran into some trouble on the second day. What kind of trouble? Some weird freak found us. He was way too strong to be a genin, let alone a jounin. Naruto's eyes widened. The others would have laughed if it had been at any other time. What? Are you alright? He pushed. Yeah, they all agreed. What did he want? Sasuke, he wanted Sasuke, Sakura said. Sorrow evident in her voice. He said that he wanted Sasuke to stay alive, but he didn't say why. Yeah, he left this strange mark on him and said that Sasuke would seek him out for power, Kiba added. Mark? What do you mean? Yeah, he took a kunai and then he made a few cuts on the side of my neck, it kinda looks like an M. Which was followed by Sasuke lowering the neck of his shirt to show his left shoulder, where the scar could be seen. It's like a sign of ownership, or a warning, Naruto muttered as he studied it. A what? Sakura inquired. I'm not quite sure, but taking into consideration that the guy said that he wanted Sasuke to stay alive, I'm guessing that something big is gonna happen and that mark is a way to fend off other people, or perhaps it's a mark to show that he wants you or something. I'm not quite sure if I have to be honest, but whatever it is, we need to be very careful and we need to be on the lookout. Someone of his strength shouldn't be in the Chunin exams, and then there's the fact that he was there shows that this person is very powerful, as no one detected or noticed him. But that's horrible! Sakura shrieked. She looked horrified, as did Kiba. But Sasuke, well, he looked very green. Naruto quickly took a glimpse at his watch to check the time before he looked up again. Listen guys. You have to meet with the examiners in the center hall, but before that, I need to have a talk with Sasuke, so why don't you two start heading over there? It wasn't really a suggestion, but thankfully they both understood the message and stood up with their trays and began to make their way out. Once they were gone, Naruto turned to Sasuke. Listen Sasuke, this is a very serious matter, it's not to be taken lightly. You need to be careful, and if anything else strange happens, you need to notify either me or the Hokage immediately, understood? Throughout this, Sasuke had been listening intently, and when Naruto was finished, he gave a curt nod to indicate that he had heard and understood every word which had been spoken. Good, now, quickly follow me so that we can get to the center hall on time, hopefully. Center hall. They had just made it in time, and now all 7 groups stood in lines with their respective senseis standing behind the teams. Everyone was quiet until the Hokage began to speak. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you all for making it this far. You have all done your villages proud. The last time that so many teams have made it through to the final round was 9 years ago, when the exams were held in Kirigakure. Now, I would like to explain the third part. Cough cough, excuse me Hokage-sama, but I need to say something before you continue. Of course, Hayate-san. Said person turned around to face the other occupants in the room, namely the Chunin hopefuls and their senseis, though mainly the former. Due to there being too many candidates who passed the second's exam, so preliminaries will be taken in order to filter you out. You see, for the final exam, many important people will be attending, and we cannot afford to waste their time as they only want to see the best. Okay, before we begin, is there anyone who feels that they can't continue to fight? He then proceeded to look around at the genins. No? Good, now everyone, turn to the board behind me so that we can see who will be fighting in the first match. Everyone then looked up and waited whilst all of their names began to scramble. Okay, could everyone apart from those two please make their way up to the viewing platform so that we may begin? Yamanaka Ino stared at her opponent, feeling slightly smug that she'd gotten paired up against a fellow kunoichi. Ino herself had gotten the highest score on the physical part of the genin exam out of all of the girls in her class, so she has every bit of confidence that she would come out victorious. However, she didn't know anything about the sand kunoichi who was standing in front of her. She calculated a bit as she observed her, and found that she only had on holster on, which meant she either had only kunai or shuriken. But then there was that large thing on her back. She didn't know what that was, but it looked heavy and awkward, so she wouldn't worry about that. Temari, on the other hand, was laughing on the inside. She could easily see that the leaf nin didn't care much about the life of a ninja. Her body was not one of a kunoichi, it was one of someone who wanted to impress a guy. Her body was too thin, her arms too wiry, and her hair was too perfect. Her movements looked slightly awkward, and she didn't have enough strength in any part of her body unless you counted her brain, but even that was debatable. She'd been hoping for a good spar, but it looked like she wouldn't be that lucky. Oh well. Ready, begin. As soon as that was declared, Hade jumped backwards, out of the line of fire. Ino waited for Temari to make the first move, but she just stood there with a casual posture whilst her own fingers were twitching, wanting to dig into her holster to retrieve a kunai, but she would not make the first move. Looks like Blondie here isn't going to move, so I guess that I'll have to if we're going to get this over with. Temari then brought her fan from behind her out in front of her, leaning against it. She smirked when she saw the twitch her opponent made when she moved. Pitiful. Ino knew that she couldn't wait any longer, she would become too jittery as she did. This was serious. If she didn't win, then she wouldn't get through to the next round. Or even worse, Sasuke wouldn't take notice to her. That's right, Ino, fight for Sasuke. She then struck a pose and pointed a finger at the sand kunoichi. Ha! If I were you, then I'd back out now because there is absolutely no way you can win. And why is that? She didn't seem all too bothered about it. That's because I'm fighting for my love. She then turned around so that she was looking at Sasuke. This is for you, Sasuke-kun, and the love we share. She then turned back around to face the kunoichi, and then let out a growl when she saw that her opponent was struggling to keep in her laughter. Haha, that look on that guy's face. That was priceless. I've never seen anyone that green before, poor guy, though he is kinda hot. She then turned her attention to Ino. She's never gonna get him with that kind of attitude, oh well, her loss. Suddenly Ino moved, her hand reaching into her holster, and her legs bending before she pushed herself forward, her hands forming a simple sign before there was a poof on her left, and when the smoke cleared, a clone of Ino could be seen, running in sync with the original towards the sand kunoichi. However, they didn't get very far as Temari simply swung her fan backwards, sending a strong gust which made the clone poof and Ino falter in her steps. Temari took the opening as she ran over to her and delivered a swift kick to the stomach, which sent her upwards slightly. This was followed by another kick to her side which sent Ino a couple meters back, in a pile on the floor. Is that all you got? Because if it is, then you might as well give up now and save yourself the embarrassment, and your love's embarrassment as well, though I'm sure that he doesn't feel the same about you, especially since you're an embarrassment to all kunoichi. You're pathetic, you spend all your times just trying to look good when you should try and get stronger. Ino ignored this as she tried to stand up, her hand clutching her stomach where she had been kicked. Her breath was uneven as she had been winded. I'm not gonna give up that easily. Which was followed by her placing her hands into a position which her teammates were all too familiar with. Shintenshin no Jutsu. However, Temari jumped out of the way, despite the fact that she didn't know what that jutsu did. She then saw the other blonde slump down to the floor, lifeless. She smirked as she realized what jutsu had been used. She confidently walked over to her, and grabbed her by the hair and raised her up so that they were eye to eye. Proctor, I think you should declare him dash. Before she could finish, she received a punch in the face. Though it wasn't strong enough to break anything, it certainly did make her nose begin to bleed. She didn't get to follow through though, as she had been cast to the side. As soon as her feet came in contact with the ground, she changed the direction which the force was taking her, and used it to sprint as fast as she could towards Temari, who had a hand holding her nose with blood dripping down. She pulled out another kunai, intent on using, but it proved worthless as she was batted to the side in the last second by Temari's giant fan, slamming her against the wall, which knocked her out. He lucky hit there. Punk, Temari mumbled to herself as she listened to the proctor declare her the winner. She made her way up to her team as the medics took away her opponent. When that was done, everyone looked up at the board to see who would fight next.